What's up? Ghost Fictions is here, and we're back again. This is a story where Izuku was the vessel of the imaginary demon, Sukuna. Through a cruel twist of fate, Izuku Midoriya inherits the destiny of becoming the world's greatest sacrifice. Through a great twist of fate, Yuji Itadori is set on the path to become the world's greatest hero. But before we start, please consider subscribe to the channel and give this video a like. Don't forget to check the description for more informations and support the amazing author FoxOnPie for writing this story. Now, let's get into the story. Rise and shine, sleepyhead. A soft melodic voice awoke him in a daze. His vision was nearly blurred beyond all reason, but he could tell that he was in a dark room only barely illuminated by candlelight. The grimy brick walls were covered in a wide assortment of papers with odd symbols drawn on them, and sitting in front of him with his chair turned around was a white-haired man dressed in all black, including his blindfold. Which one am I talking to, anyway? What? He tried to stand up, but found himself incapable of moving. It was only then that he realized he was not only in a chair instead of a bed, something that probably should have been given away by him not being in his room, but he was being restrained with large heavy ropes tied around his arms that were covered in the same papers that were on the walls. Wait, who are you? Forget me, already? I'm Satoru Gojo, freshman advisor at Jujutsu High. Jujutsu? It all came back to him in an instant. Every spot of pain, every scream of panic, every splatter of blood that wasn't his own, he wanted to vomit, but nothing was coming out. What happened to them? The guy with the dogs. And Kaken. Are they? Did I? Calm down, everyone's fine. Well, fine enough, anyway. Besides, you don't really have the time to be worrying about others. After all, Izuku Midoriya, you've got a secret execution to get ready for. Nothing about that made Midoriya feel better about his situation, and no matter how hard he tried, he couldn't think of how or why it should have. He usually took most things that happened to him in stride, but he couldn't help feeling nervous. There was the fact that he was sure he bombed the written test, or at least came very close to it. There was also the general enormity of the UA entrance exam, a test so hard that less than 1 in 300 applicants for the hero course actually made it every year. That fact led into the fact that was sticking with him the most. The fact that he was the least prepared out of everyone around him. He was athletic to the point of being gifted, he had been taking martial arts ever since he was in preschool, but all of those things were things a normal person could do. Nothing in his life up until a few weeks ago had been in service of becoming a hero, so even with all of the help his teacher had given him, he had no idea how he was supposed to measure up to the kids who had spent their whole lives training for it. All of the facts piling up on top of each other made him feel like vomiting, and he probably would have done just that if he wasn't worried about splashback on his new shoes. And go. Present Mick's sudden shout brought him out of his own headspace as he joined the other applicants in looking confused. What, were you expecting a countdown? He was, actually. Heroes don't get warnings, they just go, so go. Well, guess I'm going. He joined the rest of the applicants in their collective dash into the testing site as the practical exam began in full force. The confusion that the sudden start brought about had faded, but that only served to bring back all of the anxieties he was feeling earlier with a vengeance. As he was scrambling to deal with all of that, one of the one-point villains Present Mick talked about showed up in front of him and talked about destroying his pathetic bag of flesh. It reminded him that beyond being a test, everything he was doing right now was just one big fight. Thanks to that, he could relax and get into it. He took a breath as his body was enveloped in pink light, and he effortlessly jumped out of the way of a punch from the robot. The next time his feet touched the ground, he was behind the robot and already picking it up and shattering it with an enhanced backdrop. Well, that's 1 point down, and how many do I need to pass? I hope it's not a lot. With that thought in mind, Yuji Itadori took off to look for more robots to destroy. Gojo asked Midoriya to try and recall everything that happened the previous day, and although it made him feel sick, he did the best that he could. It was a cold February afternoon, and Midoriya was heading home from school after taking a practice exam for UA that he knew he passed with flying colors. It was the first bit of reassurance that his dream was feasible in who knew how long. He was still scrawny, he was still uncoordinated, and worst of all, he was still quirkless, but now he had undeniable proof that he could keep up with his peers in some way. Not everyone felt that way, of course, most notably Kitsuki Bakugo, his technical childhood friend. Bakugo saw him walking home with a smile on his face and took it upon himself to drag him into an alley and punch him in the stomach while his friends, lackeys, really, spectated and laughed. Ever since it came out that Midoriya was quirkless, Bakugo had never let up about how much of a loser Midoriya was and how he had no right to even think about being a hero, and with entry into UA on the horizon, the past year had seen him be even worse in that regard. Bakugo went out of his way to tear him down far more than he had before, was constantly setting off explosions mere centimeters away from his face to try and intimidate him, and just like he was right then, had started getting physical whenever he started looking too optimistic about his future prospects. Bet it through your thick ass head, Deku. A quirkless loser like you will never be a hero. Didn't I already tell you what to do if you're still hung up on this crap? Bakugo most certainly did. As the months went on, Midoriya thought about all of that more and more often, no matter how much he didn't want to, but he did what he could to put it out of his mind and keep moving forward. Some days were better than others, and Bakugo was making it one of the worst days. I think we gotta teach him a lesson that'll stick for real, bro. Lackey A said. Lackey B reached into his backpack and pulled out a small wooden box. Just looking at it made Midoriya sick to his stomach. What? You two morons really stole that thing from Tsujisawa High? What did I tell you about doing crap that could come back to me? Bakugo asked. Come on, man, no one saw us. Lackey B said. Besides, it was funny. My cousin goes there, and he says that the occult club there is always going on about how this thing's supposed to be cursed. It's a load of bunk, sure, but I bet it'd be funny to make Deku eat whatever gross thing's in here, so he'll shit his pants. Lackey B laughed as he tossed the box to Bakugo. Bakugo kicked Midoriya in the leg as he tried to leave before opening the box and pulling out a small object wrapped in bandages. Looking at it made Midoriya feel even worse than before. What the hell even is this thing? Bakugo grabbed a loose end and pulled on it ever so slightly. Drop that right now and back away. Midoriya, Bakugo, and Lackey A and Lackey B turned to the entrance of the alley to see a dark-haired boy in a Gakuren-esque uniform scowling at them. Huh? Who the hell are you? Lackey A asked. That doesn't matter. The scowling boy said. What matters is that your friend drops what he's holding and you all get out of here before things get bad. What, is Mr. Tall, dark and gloomy looking for a fight? I'm not afraid of your twink ass, I'll kick it 6 ways to Sunday if you want. Bakugo said. Hey Kaken, maybe you should listen to him. Midoriya said. Something seems weird about him and you don't even care about this thing. Well, maybe I do, now. He should have figured he would say something like that. I'm warning you, put that down. Now. The scowling boy said. He put his hands together in an odd position and his shadow appeared to stretch out and rise up from the ground. It split in two and morphed into 2 large wolves. A black one and a white one. That howled and growled at them all. What, you think a couple of mutts scare me? Bakugo asked. The fact that you can see them at all shows how serious this is, so take this as your final warning. Midoriya didn't know what he meant by that, but he could tell that there was something off about the wolves. It was the same odd feeling he got from both the scowling boy and whatever was in Bakugo's hand, something inhuman, something that didn't belong in the world. Yeah? Well, you can take this as your final chance to go fuck yourself. Bakugo unfurled the bandages, revealing the object to be a severed finger. The wolves charged at Bakugo, only for him to blow them back with an explosion that knocked them into the scowling boy. Whoa, what's that weird crap in the sky? Lackey A directed everyone's attention to the sky, where there was a black swirling mass of energy with grotesque eyes and limbs poking out. This is some Sam Raimi shit. We gotta get out of here. Lackey B said. Oh, no, not yet. Bakugo shouted. You assholes wanted a show, that twink didn't want a show, so we're not leaving till we get a show. Hacken, we really need to. Midoriya was cut off by Bakugo slamming his head against a wall. He pried his mouth open with one hand, and Midoriya's eyes widened in terror as he lifted up the finger with the other. Shut up, Deku, and eat this. Bakugo shoved the finger in his mouth without a moment's hesitation. By the time Midoriya could get himself to try and heave, it had already slid down his throat. Midoriya could hear Bakugo laughing, the scowling boy cursing him out, Lackey A and Lackey B screaming at whatever was in the sky, but all he could think about was how it all seemed to be fading away into nothing. Well, this is unexpected. The second he could properly hear anything again, a deep voice sounded off in the air, and accompanying that was the environment around Midoriya completely changing. Gone was the alleyway Bakugo had dragged him into, and in its place was what looked like a dark cave with a river of blood flowing through it and a giant ribsage lining the walls and roof. What the? Where am I? I think the better question is where am I? There was the voice again. Midoriya looked around until his vision settled on a massive pile of horned skulls, and his eyes widened when he saw who the speaker was. Himself. The voice was different, his hair was slicked back, he was wearing a light-colored kimono, and there were weird lines on his face and around his arms, but there was definitely another Izuku Midoriya in front of him. I've been waiting a good millennium for a new vessel, but I didn't expect it to be a shrimp like you. The other Izuku Midoriya said. Gotta wonder how this'll factor into all of his plans in the end. Well, whatever. The lines underneath the other Izuku Midoriya's face moved to reveal a second pair of eyes. The imagery meshed perfectly with the utterly ghastly smile he was wearing. So long as the small fry still know how to die and the women still know how to squeal, I can have plenty of fun with you. The next part of Izuku Midoriya's recollection of events could not be properly transcribed because he did not properly remember them. As hard as he tried, the memories of what followed would only come out in disjointed flashes. He remembered ripping his shirt off before jumping at the black mass in the air. He remembered it bursting apart at his feet. He remembered laughing as Lakie A and Lakie B ran for their lives. He remembered bending down and licking the blood off of a large cut on Bakigu's body, making an obscene joke about wishing it was a woman. That was when Midoriya regained control of himself, almost as if someone or something had been taking his body for a spin. The first thing he did with full control of himself, being able to fully take in all the sight of carnage and blood around him, was vomit. What the hell? What is this? Why did I? How did I? What was that thing? That guy, what did he? What did I? Kaken. Midoriya turned his attention back to Bakugo, still unconscious, still bleeding out. Kaken. Wake up. Please. I didn't. I wasn't. Don't move. Midoriya did just that as the two wolves jumped at his sides, their hot breath on his bare skin. Midoriya turned his head to look at the scowling boy, his uniform torn up a bit in various cuts on his body. The second he turned to look at him, the white wolf bit his leg. I said don't move. The scowling boy said. Deku, right. You've been cursed by the deadliest cursed spirit known to man. This isn't your fault and I'm sorry for you, but I need to exorcise you, right here and now. Midoriya both did and didn't understand what he was saying. He didn't know what he meant by cursed spirits and exorcisms, but one thing was clear. He was going to die. Hold on, let's not be so hasty, Megumi. Before Midoriya had the chance to cry, someone appeared seemingly out of nowhere. It was Gojo. Midoriya could now remember that was when he first met Gojo. What the hell are you doing here? Megumi asked. Well, the higher-ups got a little antsy after hearing that a special grade cursed object was in play, so they sent me to lend you a hand, and here I am after a couple of hours of sightseeing. Gojo said. Would it kill you to even try to do your job? Yeah, probably. Megumi looked ready to say something, but before he could, Gojo said. So, where is it, anyway? This guy ate it. Well, his friend on the ground there made him eat it, anyway. What? Are you serious? That's messed up. What kind of crazy fads are you kids into these days? God, I miss planking. Midoriya couldn't follow the flow of the conversation at all, and before he knew it, Gojo was right in front of him, looking straight at him in spite of the blindfold. 10 seconds. Gojo said while doing some stretches. What? Midoriya asked. Turn back into Sukuna and come back out in 10 seconds. Sukuna? Is that the other me? How do you? No, I can't. I don't know what's going on, but I can't put that guy back in control. More people will get hurt if I do. Just look at what happened to Kaken. Yeah, he's pretty banged up, especially with that super nasty cut he's got, but you know what he still has. His life. And he has that because you managed to regain control before he could get too beat up. It's got me thinking that you're just a little bit stronger than you give yourself credit for, but just to be safe, I want to put it to the test, so how about it? Midoriya didn't feel as if he actually had a choice in the matter, like the question was just a formality before Gojo went ahead and did whatever he wanted, but something about what he said still struck a chord with him. Something about how Bakugo wasn't dead because he managed to stop Sukuna, stop himself, from going too far. If that were true, then it was the only real evidence there would ever be of Midoriya having any true strength. If I do this, you're gonna get hurt, you know. Maybe even. Don't worry about me, I'm super strong. Why, I bet even All Might couldn't beat me. If Midoriya was in a better mood, he'd go off into a rant about why everything about that was wrong, but he wasn't, so he just emptied his mind and let that thing, that Sukuna, take control again. Once more, only small flashes of recollections could be found. Midoriya remembered lunging at Gojo dodging everything he threw at him, even making some rubble float in midair, and before he knew it, he was unconscious. All of that brought Midoriya back to the present, where Gojo was telling him that it was his time to die. Despite Yuji's earlier misgivings, the exam was going pretty well for him. With his own speed combined with the speed of One for All, it was easy for him to locate robot after robot, and with his own strength combined with the strength of One for All, it was easy for him to destroy every robot he came across. He still didn't know how many points he needed to pass, and still hoped that it wasn't a lot, but he felt like he didn't have much to worry about at that point. And 3 more. Yuji said to no one as he shattered a 3-point villain to bits with a devastating kick. That makes, a lot, I'm pretty sure. Should be enough to pass, I think. With that thought in mind, Yuji deactivated One for All and slowed his pace around the test site. He wasn't going to stop looking for robots to destroy, but with only a few minutes left in the exam, he didn't need to keep One for All continually active and exhaust himself. It would be fine if he just saved it for the moment he ran into something he needed to fight. Before Yuji could take more than a few steps forward, a thunderous rumbling sound echoed through the air. The second he looked around to try and trace the source, he was met with the sight of a giant robot stomping around and destroying building after building in the artificial cityscape. Is that the zero-pointer present Mick was talking about? Yuji thought. You're kidding. That thing's insane, it's like one of the villains that was wrecking Shinjuku a couple months ago. As Yuji stood there in disbelief, applicant after applicant ran past him in the opposite direction of the zero-pointer, most of them screaming for their lives. Yuji didn't feel like screaming, but running away seemed like a good bandwagon to jump onto. He probably had enough points to pass, and if he wouldn't be getting any points for fighting it, then there wasn't any point to stick around. As Yuji turned around to leave, he heard someone cry out in pain. He turned back around to see a brunette with rosy cheeks collapsed on the ground with some rubble on top of her leg. That must have happened when the robot started destroying buildings, and that same robot was still on the warpath in her direction. Naturally, Yuji activated One for All and ran back towards the robot. He could tell that everyone who was watching him thought he was stupid, and maybe he was, but he didn't care. This was the kind of life he wanted to live, needed to live, if he ever wanted to make his grandfather and his teacher proud. Yuji had only ever had his grandfather in his life, he didn't know what happened to his parents, and he didn't want to know, because things were fine as they were. Yuji's grandfather didn't think the same, and Yuji always had to shut him up when he talked about how he wished Yuji didn't have to be saddled with a lonely life because of him. He kept talking about that even as he died, his last words telling Yuji to try and help people, so no one would have to suffer needlessly, and so he wouldn't die alone like he did. If that what was his grandfather wanted, for Yuji to be able to help people so that he and others could die good deaths, then he wanted to do it, but it was impossible. He didn't have the brains to be a doctor or a scientist, and he could become a policeman or a firefighter, but they could only do so much, especially compared to heroes, and it's not like a quirkless person like Yuji could become a hero. That was where his teacher, All Might, the #1 hero in the country, ended up coming in. All Might had been a friend of his grandfather for as long as he could remember, he never questioned it, and because of it, he never ended up idolizing him like a lot of people did. Yuji, All Might was just a normal guy, the kind of guy who would apologize to Yuji for not being there when his grandfather passed away. Yuji told him about the last conversation he had with his grandfather, and as Yuji was lost in thought about what he could do to honor him, All Might asked him one question. Yuji, my boy, what if I could help you be a hero? Apparently, All Might nearly died fighting someone 6 years ago. The muscular body most people were familiar with was just a transformation from his true form of a skinny, sickly man, the sight of which made Yuji do a double take. His power was getting lower and lower every year, as was the amount of time he could spend fighting, and it wouldn't be long before he couldn't fight at all. Before that happened, he wanted to choose someone to be his successor, not just in a metaphorical sense, but a literal one, as All Might's quirk, One for All, had the power to pass itself and the massive power it held onto others, and All Might wanted Yuji to be the 9th person to inherit it. Yuji couldn't believe what he was hearing, and he couldn't understand why All Might thought he was right for the job, but All Might wasted no time in explaining. He said that he had watched Yuji grow up into a strong young man with a kind heart who always made an effort to help those who needed it, and the fact that he was feeling so torn up about not knowing how to keep doing that left no doubt in his mind that he had the heart and soul of a true hero. In his mind, there was no one who deserved to inherit his power more than Yuji, and while Yuji didn't know if he agreed with that, if All Might was giving him the chance to do right by his grandfather, to do right by other people, then he wanted to take it. He had some reservations when All Might told him that he had to eat a strand of his hair to get his quirk, but he kept to it, and one rolled up piece of cheese and a 2-week-long training session later, Yuji was in his current situation, facing down a giant robot to protect a random girl, as ultimate power flowed through his entire body. He wouldn't have it any other way. Don't know if it's really my thing, but smash. With One for All flowing through him at full force, Yuji's fist collided with one of the zero-pointer's metal hands. The robot fell back as fissures appeared across its body, and its collision with the ground was accompanied by an explosion that blew away its entire upper body. Wow, I can't believe that actually worked. Yuji turned to the girl and asked her. Hey, are you alright? I think so. The girl said. My ankle hurts and I can't get this stuff off of me, but a giant robot isn't about to kill me, so thank you for that. Hey, no problem. Let me help you up. Yuji reached down to help the girl up, but he quickly stopped himself and said. Nope, never mind. Pretty sure my arm is broken. Sorry. The girl laughed out an apology as the practical exam officially came to a close. Now, I know that you're probably all geared up for an execution, but don't go washing your neck just yet, Izuku. Was what Gojo said as Midoriya finished recounting all the horrors of what he just went through. You're still gonna die, no changing that, but if you want, it doesn't have to be right now. What do you mean? Midoriya asked. Well, you know that monster currently living it up in your head. That's Ryomen Sukuna. 1,000 years ago, he was an evil sorcerer who killed countless people around the world for no reason other than being a sadistic bastard. It took the best sorcerers in the world to just barely bring him down, and that was the golden age of Jujutsu, so that says a lot. You have no idea what I'm talking about, do you? Gojo read him like a book. Okay, so everyone has negative thoughts, right? Well, when those negative thoughts get out of control and get mixed up with lots of other people's negative thoughts, they give rise to curse energy and create cursed spirits, or curses, for short. Curses are always trying to kill humans, and the only ones who are able to fight them are Jujutsu sorcerers, people like me and Megumi who can wield curse energy as a weapon. That all makes sense to you? More or less, Izuku said. But enough. Back to Sukuna, when he died, all that was left behind were his 20 fingers, 5 from each hand. Said fingers absorbed his leftover curse energy. And his consciousness, evidently. And turned into special grade cursed objects. Gojo reached into his pocket and pulled out a finger nearly identical to the one Midoriya ate. As of right now, we have 6 fingers in our possession, and as for why we haven't gotten rid of them. Gojo tossed a finger in the air and held his hand in alignment with it, causing it to fly back into a wall with such force that a crater was formed. The finger, though, was completely fine. That's why. These things are basically indestructible, so all they're good for is attracting curses and getting people killed, and they get better at that with each passing day. That's where you come in, Izuku. Me? Yes, you. You fused with one of Sukuna's fingers, so if you die, that means the finger goes with you. The yellow-bellied higher-ups wanted to jump the gun and kill you right here, but I came up with a brilliant idea. Have you eat all of Sukuna's fingers, then we'll kill you so that we can get rid of Sukuna for good. Pretty smart, right? It's all up to you, though. There it was. The only reason he wasn't killed on the spot was that there was a chance for these people to use him as some sort of pawn to kill a sociopathic monster from a bygone era. Either he died after who knew how long it took to gather up all the other fingers, or he decided to euthanize himself on the spot. It was hard to decide which one was better, and the only solace he had was an illusion of a semblance of agency. Of course, once the subject of agency was brought up, there was only one thing on his mind. I want to see my mom, Midoriya said. I was hoping you'd say that, Gojo said. Midoriya didn't quite understand why his apartment door seemed so big to him. It might have been because he hadn't been back home in about a day, or maybe, most likely, it was because he knew that this was the last time he could go home before he died. Whatever it was, it took all he had to unlock the door and step inside. Izuku, you're home. The second he stepped over the threshold, his mother, Inko, grappled him and pulled him into the hall. What happened? You didn't call, no one knew where you were, and when Kakin went to the hospital, I couldn't stop thinking the worst. Kakin? He's in the hospital. He could feel sweat dripping down his face, his heart beating into a frenzy. He's going to be fine, but what about you? Where were you? And what happened to your face? My face? Midoriya thought. He felt around his face until his hand ran over 2 scars underneath his eyes. The same places where Sukuna's extra eyes opened up. Allow me to answer that, madam. Before Midoriya could stumble his way through a lie, Gojo had stepped into the apartment and gotten between the two of them. Hello there, my name's Satoru Gojo. I'm a first-year teacher at Tokyo Prefectural Jujutsu High School. Gojo handed Inko a business card that, for whatever reason, was covered in glitter and had a holographic cartoony image of himself. Tokyo Prefectural Jujutsu. This is a hero school. You're a hero. Technically. That was the first Midoriya was hearing about it, and he did his best to hide that. You see, Izuku and his buddies ran into a villain yesterday. Just some low-life thug, but even they can be dangerous to untrained kids, as Katsuki's whole deal in these little cuts should have made clear. Izuku, believe it or not, managed to use his brains and what passes for brawn to hold him off until yours truly could show up and save the day. His phone got broken in the fight, though, and we were so busy questioning and filing reports that we forgot to call you, so sorry about that. Really? I guess that makes sense. Inko looked uncertain, but not so much that she would truly question Gojo's claims. Midoriya hated lying to his mother, but he couldn't help but be thankful for how trusting she was. And this part I just know you're gonna love, Mrs. Midoriya. Me and the other staff members at Jujutsu High were so impressed with how Izuku handled himself that we're offering him a full scholarship to our school. What? Inko asked. What? Midoriya asked. Hey, why are you confused? Gojo asked. Yes, this little cinnamon roll really blew us away with all of his heroism and chutzpah, and we want to snag him up before someone in the States or the Middle East catches wind of what he's got inside of him. I don't really know what that means. Inko said. But is that even? You know that he's… What? That he's quirkless. Yes, we know all about that, and we don't care. We do things differently at Jujutsu High, and the people who graduate from us end up as the kind of heroes who don't need to rely on their quirks to save the day. We really think Izuku can be like that, and we hope you'll think the same. Inko looked unsure of herself for a good moment, but soon enough, she turned to Midoriya and began to say. Izuku, I know I haven't been the most supportive of your dream over the years, and I'm sorry for that. I've always been sorry that I couldn't do more to help you, to pick you up when you were feeling down, but that's going to change now. I don't know how to feel about all of this, but if you want to do this, then you'll have my support every step of the way because I want to believe you can be a hero, Izuku. Those were the words he had always wanted to hear. Midoriya was able to put up with his peers not believing he could be a hero, but the one thing that truly hurt the most was his own mother not believing in him. To finally have her support now, of all times, it had to be the cruelest trick of fate anyone could imagine. There was so much he wanted to say, but all he could put out was a simple thank you that sounded far more empty than he would have wanted it to. Well, glad we got all that squared away. Gojo said, clapping his hands to break the tension. Now then, there's just a couple of things I need to discuss with Izuku in private, but after that, I'll be out of your hair until it's time for him to move into the dorms next week. That sound good? Great. See ya. Gojo grabbed Midoriya and dragged him into the bathroom. This isn't your bedroom, is it? Next door on the right. Midoriya said. Gojo wasted no time in properly dragging Midoriya into his room. Wow, look at all the All Might stuff in here. Gojo said as he flicked a limited edition All Might action figure still in its packaging. But not a shred of merchandise for little All-Me. I'm a little hurt, Izuku. How much of what you told my mom was true? Midoriya asked, not even wanting to indulge Gojo. Most of it, actually. Jujutsu High is a hero school as far as the general public is concerned, and anyone who graduates from there gets a hero license to make it easier to work. Curses and curse energy can only be seen by normal people when their lives are in danger, so being a hero is the perfect cover. But you, well, you're probably not gonna get that chance. Because I'm going to die, right? Yep. If you want to die now, we'll send your mom some fake letters and texts for a few months before telling her you died in a work-study accident. Very tragic, completely our fault, please don't sue us, take this settlement check with so many zeros that you won't have to lift a finger for the rest of your life. That's basically how it'd go down. Midoriya supposed he could at least be happy that his mom would be provided for after he died. And if I wait until I eat all the fingers? Same thing, it's just that it'll happen at a later date. We'll probably give your mom more money in that case, and depending on how long it takes, you might even get the chance to work as a real hero before you die. You'd like that, right? Gojo had a goofy smile on his face. Once again, Midoriya refused to indulge him. Do curses like Sukuna kill a lot of people? Midoriya asked. Gojo sat down on Midoriya's bed, not wrinkling the comforter in the slightest, and said. This isn't a normal circumstance for us, but yes. Over 10,000 people die under mysterious circumstances every year, and those mysterious circumstances are being killed by curses. The lucky ones are the victims whose bodies are perfectly intact, so getting involved in this world means that you're gonna see some gruesome stuff. I honestly wouldn't be surprised if you ended up like that one day. Gojo seemed to really enjoy stressing that he was going to die. But Sukuna's fingers attract curses, so if he's completely destroyed, it'll mean that fewer people will die, right? Gojo said nothing for a few seconds before saying. Of course. Gojo-san, do you still have that finger? Gojo tossed the finger to Midoriya without a word, and in a similar bit of silence, Midoriya swallowed the finger whole. He felt sick again. The world was melting around him and coalescing into a pool of blood underneath his feet. Darkness clouded his vision, and something both warm and cold began to embrace him. Well, you sure were quick to come back. It was Sukuna. Of course, it was Sukuna. Did you want to have some fun again? I've been looking for another shot at that white-haired bastard, so I'm game. Stop it. Or maybe I should start by finishing off your friend. I just hate leaving people only half mutilated, you know. Stop it. Your mom could be fun, too. A little on the chunky side, if I'm being honest, but I don't discriminate, so long as the woman can lie there and take it, anyone's fine with me. I said stop it. Midoriya used all of his strength to shake Sukuna off of him. You don't get a say in this. In any of this. This is my body, my life, so I'm in charge. I decide what happens, and I've decided that you're gonna die. Sukuna kneed Midoriya in the stomach and made him fall to his knees. Is that right? Well, good luck with that, little hero. Sukuna said with a laugh. All of a sudden, the pain in Midoriya's stomach was gone, and he was back in his room with Gojo staring at him. Had me worried there for a second, but it looks like you managed to pull through. Gojo said. Not just anyone could do what you just did, you know, so you can be a little proud of that. I'll try and get to work on that. Midoriya said. I don't want to do this. I don't want to die, I don't want to be part of whatever world this is, but I'm going to do it if it means that I can help people. Helping people even when the odds are stacked against you is what a hero does, and I know that none of this makes me a hero, but it's the closest I'm gonna get to it, so I'll make the most of it. That's the spirit. You're really growing on me, you know. Gojo said with a laugh. He got off of Midoriya's bed, made his way to the door, and said. Well, as I said, I'll be back next week to take you to Tokyo so you can join the other 3 kids I'll be teaching, so do what you want with that time. Bye bye. With that, Gojo left his room and left Midoriya all alone. He fell back onto his bed, where he had no concrete plans of leaving for the next week. The UA entrance exam was set to happen in 2 weeks. He had planned to spend that time studying his heart out in the faintest hope of getting accepted. It would have been nice. 8 days after the entrance exam, Yuji went to Takoba Beach, which he had spent a week completely clearing of trash after obtaining One for All, to meet up with All Might. All Might was in his true sickly form, and while Yuji had only known about it for a couple of weeks, he had already gotten used to the idea of it being what All Might naturally looked like. He could high-five all the same, so that was a good thing. Congratulations on passing, young Yuji. All Might said. Thanks. Couldn't have done it without you. Yuji said. I still can't believe I passed with how much I bombed the written exam. Yes, we probably should have spent some time hitting the books instead of the sandbag, although I feel like the result would have been the same, either way. As much as he wanted to, Yuji couldn't disagree with that. Well, you're gonna be teaching at UA, right? We can work on it then. One for all, too. I kinda broke my arm near the end of the exam, and I don't think that's supposed to happen, right? No, and I'm honestly surprised. You're about as strong as I was at your age, if not a little stronger, and you managed to get a handle on One for All rather quickly. Were you doing anything differently at the end there? Yuji thought back to the entrance exam for a bit, and soon enough, he was able to say. I think that when I was saving that girl, I forgot about the thing where I spread One for All throughout my entire body and just focused it all into my arm. That punch felt, I dunno, 10 times stronger than my normal ones. That's probably what did it. That makes sense, then. As unnaturally strong as you are, young Yuji, One for All is stronger. Based on what you've said and what we've done, the highest you can go without hurting yourself is roughly 10%. That'll change once you get a better handle on it, but at the very least, you should try to not focus it all into a single point like you did. Yeah, I get that, breaking my arm was not fun, you know. But I was able to help someone by doing that, so it all worked out in the end, right? Haha. I guess it did. That was all Yuji needed to hear to feel better about himself. Don't get too okay with hurting yourself, though. Why, even after everything, I know that your parents. Knock it off. I'm still not interested in hearing about that. All Might looked oddly glum for a moment before going into his muscular form and patting him hard on the back. If you don't care, then I don't care. Live the way you want, my boy. All Might said with a hearty laugh. Some people on another part of the beach took notice of All Might, so All Might led him away in a swift jog before they could get too close. Yuji hadn't imagined his life ending up like this, but he couldn't complain about it, nor did he want to. Top 10 scores. Yuji Itadori villain points. 48, rescue points. 60 total. 108. Itsuki Bakugo villain points. 77, rescue points. 0 total. 77. Ejiro Kirishima villain points. 39, rescue points. 35 total. 75. Ibara Shiozaki villain points. 36, rescue points. 32 total. 68. Nanako Hasaba villain points. 55, rescue points. 11 total. 66. Itsuka Kendo villain points. 25, rescue points. 40 total. 65. Tenya Ida villain points. 52, rescue points. 9 total. 61. Tetsutetsu villain points. 49, rescue points. 10 total. 59. Yumikage Tokoyami villain points. 47, rescue points. 10 total. 57. Isetsu Awase villain points. 50 rescue points. 6 total. 56. Midoriya did his best to keep up his charade to his mother when Gojo came to pick him up. As far as she was concerned, he was getting ready to walk on the path of becoming a hero like he always wanted, so all he had to do was put every imagining of that scenario into effect there. He was able to leave his apartment in peace thanks to that, never letting it slip that he was probably never going to see her again. The reality of his situation hitting him once more kept him silent through most of the ride to Tokyo, no matter how much Gojo kept prodding him for some kind of reaction. Soon enough, however, they had arrived at a mountain in Tokyo, and after hiking up that mountain for about 20 minutes, they had arrived at a forest filled with a wide assortment of Buddhist temples and gates that, according to Gojo, were the campus grounds. Much to Midoriya's own surprise, he managed to get all the way there before collapsing from exhaustion. "Did you mean to do that?" Gojo asked. No, I didn't," Midoriya said through haggard breaths. "Odd, what a wimpy vessel you are. Might as well jump off a cliff the next time I take over." Midoriya froze when he suddenly heard Sukuna's voice, despite still being in control of himself. Midoriya shifted his eye a bit to see a mouth protruding from his cheek. Sukuna had been doing that lately, and he didn't like it, so just like always, he slammed a hand over his mouth. "Man, what a weird body you got there," Gojo said. "I'm not happy about it either, but it'll still do for killing you one day," Sukuna said, his mouth now appearing on the back of Midoriya's hand. He didn't know he could do that, but one hit to his wrist finally made the mouth go away. "It's so cute that he thinks he could beat me. Don't you think so, Izuku?" Gojo asked. He helped Midoriya back onto his feet and gave him a bottle of water. "Should I?" Midoriya asked after downing half of the bottle. "Didn't you say that the best sorcerers in the world at the time when Jujutsu was at its peak only barely beat him?" "Yeah, but I'm tougher than all of them. Sukuna'd probably rough me up a little if he were at full power, but I'd still win, cause no one's tougher than me. Even All Might." The confidence with which Gojo spoke was nearly enough for Midoriya to take him at his word, but he wouldn't be Izuku Midoriya if he didn't even try and maintain the idea of All Might being the greatest. "Yeah, but that's not really fair, since I kind of cheat. I'm basically the only sorcerer All Might couldn't wipe the floor with, and if he had even a yoctogram of curse energy, the same would be true for curses." It wasn't the answer he was hoping for, but Midoriya could live with that, and he was in a bit of a good mood as Gojo led him into one of the buildings. "Satoru. You're late by 8 minutes." That good mood fell apart the second Midoriya saw him and Gojo being yelled at by an older man wearing sunglasses, surrounded by a large assortment of plushies. It was less the yelling and more the dichotomy of it all that messed him up. "You're late, but not so late that it's worth getting upset about, and that's what really pisses me off." "That's definitely a you problem, man," Gojo said. "Izuku, this is my old buddy, Principal Yaga. Should have mentioned this earlier, but you gotta interview with him before you're actually allowed to go to school here." "Wait, what? Is he gonna kill me if I fail, then?" Midoriya asked. "I guess we'll find out." Midoriya hated that he smiled as he said that. There wasn't anything he could do about it though, so he turned to Principal Yaga to introduce himself. "My name is Izuku Midoriya. I wanted to be a hero, but I'll be going here instead." "Nice to meet you," Midoriya said with a bow. "Why are you here?" Yaga asked. He didn't even look up at him, his face locked on the stitching of one of the plushies. Midoriya raised his head and asked. "For an interview?" "I mean this school, specifically. To learn how to be a sorcerer." "And then? What do you plan on doing after that?" "What do I? I'm going to help gather up Sukuna's fingers, obviously. It's dangerous to leave them alone, so I want to help get rid of them." "Why aren't you trying to become a doctor?" Yaga's question left him feeling dumbfounded. Every year, 8 million people die from smoking. In terms of pure numbers, that's a far more serious issue than curses, so why aren't you becoming a doctor?" About 1.5 million people die in car accidents every year, so you could also do a lot by becoming a police officer or even just a crossing guard, so why not do that? I mean, hell, global warming is going to kill all of us one day, so being an environmentalist could let you save more lives than anything. There are far more things in the world people are dying from than curses, so why are curses the only thing that's inexcusable to you? I don't know. It's not like I have a choice in being involved with all of this. And what about you? It's not like you're doing any of that stuff. That's because I already know what's right for me, but what about you? Hell, you said you wanted to be a hero, so you're just giving up on that dream, then? Midoriya could have sworn he saw the dull Principal Yaga was holding Twitch, but he was more occupied with his words. Granted, he had been saying a lot for Midoriya to mull over, but him talking about Midoriya being a hero was sitting with him more than anything else. Being a doctor or a crossing guard or all of those other things, it's not the same as a hero. Sure, they all help people, but a hero is different because I know for a fact that not just anyone can be a hero. I can't, after all. If you're going to blame Sukuna for that. I'm not. Even if he wasn't here, I don't know if I could have become a hero. I'm weak, I'm uncoordinated, and to top it all off, I'm quirkless. Some of that is on me, but some of it I couldn't do anything about. But even with all of that, I still wanted to be a hero, because I wanted to be someone who could help save people when they're in trouble in a way that most people can't. Destroying Sukuna will do that in its own way, so if doing that is the closest I'll ever get to becoming a hero, then I'm going to do it. It doesn't matter if the people who die from curses is only a tenth, a hundredth, or even a millionth of the people who die from something else. A true hero can die happy, knowing that they've saved just one life, and so can I. Midoriya did his best to keep himself from shaking, but he still let out a few slight vibrations. He hoped Principal Yaga wouldn't notice, but what little he could garner about the man made that unlikely. And I was looking forward to beating the crap out of you, too. Principal Yaga said. Midoriya didn't know how to take that. Satoru, take him to the dorm and go over security rules with him. What? You pass. Starting this spring, you're a student at Jujutsu High. Midoriya thanked Principal Yaga with a smile and a cheerful thanks. There was no reason for him to feel so ecstatic about it, since all it meant was that he was able to delay his inevitable death a little longer, but he couldn't help himself. It was one of the only times he had ever managed to stand his ground and not have it blow up in his face. The first thing Yuji thought about when he got dressed for school was that his uniform looked really good on him. While Yuji ate his breakfast, the biggest thing to come to mind was that his uniform looked really good on him. As he jogged 3 kilometers to school while listening to songs by 9mm Parabellum Bullet, he kept thinking that his uniform looked really good on him. Yuji really liked how his uniform looked on him. He had never given much thought to a uniform before, but the clean-cut style and texture of his high school uniform was too good for him to ignore. It really helped make it sink in that he was going to a school as fancy as UA, and he could get behind all of that. After spending 3 minutes jogging 3 kilometers, Yuji finally arrived at UA. The school still looked as large and impressive as ever, and even the door to his classroom was incredibly large. It was probably in case they ever got a student whose quirk made them giant-sized, Yuji thought, and now he was wondering what it would be like if he were a giant. Would he be the kind of giant that lived atop a beanstalk, or the kind that would be brothers with Chris Hemsworth? He didn't want to be the kind that ate people, though, he was certain of that. Wait, stop, this is stupid and not what I'm supposed to be doing, Yuji thought. I gotta go in and make a good impression on the people I'm gonna spend the next 3 years with. Shouldn't be too hard, I'm pretty sure. When Yuji opened the door and stepped into Class 1A, the first thing he was confronted with was 2 kids yelling about how one of them, a white-haired boy with a diagonal scar running down his face and underneath his shirt, wouldn't take his feet off of his desk. Yeah, this might be a little hard. Ah, it's you. One of the kids, a blue-haired boy with glasses and a rather polite speech pattern, moved away from the diagonally scarred boy and marched over to Yuji. Hello, my name is Tenya Ida from Same Junior High. Yeah, I just hear you say all of that. Yuji Itadori, by the way. Yuji said. Itadori-kun, I'm so glad that you're in this class, for it gives me the chance to properly congratulate you. Ida said. For what, exactly? For being able to perceive the true nature of the exam, of course. Its true purpose was to evaluate how well he could perform all aspects of heroism, not just defeating our enemies, and the fact that you were the only one to go after the giant villain, despite it not having any value, showed that you were the only one to understand that. I'm ashamed of myself for not having the same level of intuition as you. Hey, it's fine, don't beat yourself up over it. Yuji wanted to tell him that he had no idea that there was more to the test than just destroying robots, and how he was just as surprised that he got points for saving that rosy-cheeked girl, but the mood didn't seem right for it. Oh. You're the pink-haired boy. It's so nice to see you again. Speak of the devil, said Rosy Cheek just happened to enter the classroom at that moment. Hey, nice to see you, too. Yuji said. Recovery girl fixed your leg up right? Yeah, never better. Glad it's the same with your arm. He had almost forgotten about that in favor of asking about her condition. If you're looking for a place to be buddy-buddy with people, go somewhere else. This class is for people looking to become heroes. Yuji didn't know who said that, but he discovered the source of the statement when he looked behind the rosy-cheeked girl. Some sort of giant worm with a human face slithering in the hallway. Move. The worm said. Yuji did just that, and the worm slithered into the classroom, stood up at the front of the room, and shed its skin. At that moment, Yuji realized that the worm was actually a scruffy man dressed in all black, save for the scarf-like object around his neck, who had just crawled out of a large sleeping bag. I'm Shouta Izawa, your homeroom teacher for the year. Nice to meet you, I guess. Anyway, change into your gym clothes and go outside to the track field. Izawa stepped out of the classroom before anyone had a chance to ask him anything about anything. Ah, I forgot my lunch. Yuji said. They give free lunch here, right? Ah, but today's a half day, so we're not even gonna have lunch. I guess that works out, then. Yuji and his classmates all got dressed in their gym clothes and met Izawa outside on the track field where they were soon informed of what they would be doing. A quirk apprehension test. Some of his classmates were confused by the idea, but Aizawa saying he could do whatever he wanted as a teacher justified it enough for Yuji, though he did wonder what was to be gained by having them just do a lot of basic exercises when a fight would work better. Itadori, you got first in the entrance exam, so we'll start with you. Aizawa said, eliciting a snarl from the diagonally scarred boy for some reason. How far could you throw a softball in junior high? 150 meters. Yuji said. I meant without your quirk. 150 meters. Aizawa glared at Yuji for a moment before he said. This is your first day, so you don't know any better, but do not be a smartass with me. I'm not. That's how far I could do it, honest. Aizawa sighed and tossed Yuji a softball without a word. His intention was clear as day, so Yuji tossed the ball out into the field with all of his might. After it hit the ground, Aizawa held up a tablet that displayed a figure of 200.66 meters. As many of his classmates voiced their astonishment, Yuji mused about how much his training with All Might had paid off for him. Okay, so you're not a liar. My bad. Aizawa said. He tossed him another ball and said. Now do it with your quirk. Yuji nodded and activated One for All. His vision was tinted pink as he threw the ball again, his new throw being like a missile being launched into the sky. It took a few moments for it to land, and according to Aizawa, it flew 1.5 kilometers. Whoa, are you serious? That's awesome. Shouted a boy with spiky teeth and spiky red hair. Yuji let out a sheepish laugh as more people expressed their amazement. He wasn't trying to get a big head or anything, but it was still a bit of fun to have people flock to him for something he was actually good at. By the way, whoever gets last place in this test is expelled. Have fun with that. Yuji did not know how that would be possible. Midoriya's dorm room was at least twice as big as his old room. As he was unpacking the luggage he had sent to Gojo the day before, a thought came to mind. He had so much room for more All Might merchandise. It could be a waste of both space and money, but if he only had so much time left in the world, then there was no reason to not have at least a little bit of fun with it. Just as he was starting to get into a good mood with his good groove, Midoriya found a package he didn't know existed that was signed by his mother. Midoriya opened it up to find a green jumpsuit with a mask that had ears and a mouthguard that vaguely resembled All Might. He wasn't sure what it was supposed to be at first, but as he held it up and felt its material, he recognized the stitchwork from years of having his clothes patched up and getting handmade scarves and socks for his birthday and Christmas. It was a hero costume his mother had made for him with her own 2 hands. She even went this far to show that she's on my side, Midoriya thought. Mom, you must have been so happy for me. You must have been so proud that I got a chance to follow my dream, so happy that you got to see me off as I stepped onto the path I wanted, but you don't even know that I. Midoriya's thoughts fell apart into nothingness as he wrapped his arms around the costume, the act bringing him just a little bit closer to his mother, if only in a spiritual sense. The tender moment was interrupted when Midoriya suddenly saw a face in the reflection of the balcony door and jumped back in shock. Apologies. Was I intruding on an emotional moment of some sort? Midoriya jumped back again, the second jump now putting him close to where he originally was, as he came face to face with a girl in a white coat, whose gray bangs covered her left eye, and whose arms were bent like a ghost or a zombie. The fact that she appeared out of nowhere was one thing, but the fact that she was a girl, something Midoriya had far too little experience dealing with, made it even worse. Midoriya-kun, was it? I apologize if I was being rude just now, especially since this is our first meeting. Oh my god. Midoriya thought. I can't believe it. I'm doing it. I'm having a conversation with a girl. That was not true. Did you make the costume yourself? I must say, I admire the work put into it. There's a definite charm to the design that you don't see in a lot of professional costumes. Thank you. My mom made it, but still, thank you. Midoriya said, finally committing to his assertion of talking to a girl. Wait, how did you know my name? Ryuko Yanagi. Yanagi said. As for how I was made aware of your name, I know that Izuku Midoriya is the only other incoming freshman student on campus right now aside from myself and Fushiguro-kun, so that must be you, correct? Why yeah, I guess that's right. And I'm guessing you're talking about Megumi when you say Fushiguro-kun, right? That's good to know. I felt kind of weird calling him by his first name, especially since a thought occurred to him that he had to act on. Yanagi-san, do you know about, well, that you are the vessel for Ryam and Sukuna, the king of curses. All of us were made aware of it the day that Gojo-san took you in. That made sense. Midoriya understood why they would all know about it, but a part of him wished that that wouldn't be the case. My apologies, Midoriya-kun. I am certain that eating Sukuna's finger was an exhilarating taste sensation, but everything beyond that is something no one should have to deal with, especially people our age. It is truly unfortunate that you have to deal with this. Thank you, Yanagi-san. Midoriya said. He went out of his way to not think too hard about Yanagi talking about how Sukuna's finger must have tasted good, but it was the first time anyone made an effort to comfort him on what he was going through, so everything else was nice to think about. Now, that being said, there was another reason for why I came to your room. Right now, our seniors are holding a party in the lounge. It is open to all students on campus, so would you like to attend? What? A party? Me? I don't really do well at parties, mostly because I never get invited to them. Before Midoriya could keep making excuses, he was suddenly lifted into the air as Yanagi raised one of her hands in his direction. It would be most ideal for you to socialize. Fushiguro-kun already refuses to do so, and I do not wish for you to be like him, Yanagi said. She stepped out into the hall and Midoriya floated in the air behind her with every step. Once again, the idea of choice was ripped out of his hands. Yanagi finally set Midoriya down atop a large couch some 3 minutes or so after telekinetically dragging him out of his room. Just as he was beginning the process of getting off the couch and running back to his room, there was a panda in his face, and he instead decided to scream. What, is there something on my face? Midoriya screamed even louder as the panda spoke. Takuin, Takuin. A white-haired boy with a scarf around his face was speaking utter gibberish as Midoriya kept loudly reacting to the talking panda. Oh my god, can you? Maki, just shut him up already. A dark-haired man with a fur coat and a pencil-thin mustache addressed a muscular girl with glasses and a ponytail, and said girl proceeded to punch Midoriya in the face. You feel like shutting up now? Maki asked. Midoriya, knowing what was in his best interests, nodded his head. Good. Ryuko, since you're the one who's gonna be spending the most time with him, you're probably gonna need to learn how to do that on command. Yanagi gave a thumbs up, and Midoriya wasn't too happy about that. So, you're the kid Sukuna's made a vessel out of, eh? Pretty scrawny, all things considered. I bet I could kick your ass with both hands tied behind my back. If you're looking to get tied up, I can help with that. Hope you're ready for what comes afterward, though. Sukuna said, his mouth manifesting on Midoriya's face for a moment and his tongue licking his cheek. Please don't hit me again. Midoriya said. Just this once, and only because it's your first day. Maki said. Okay guys, let's cut him a little break now, please. The one who asked that was a boy in a white jacket with bags under his eyes and a sword tied to his back. Midoriya let out an internal gasp as he thought of something, but he didn't want to get carried away just yet. Whatever. Maki huffed and stepped away from Midoriya, but still remained within arm's length, probably in case she felt like hitting him again. So that's Maki Zenin. The tired-looking boy said. You should call her by her first name, don't ask why because she doesn't like you enough to tell you yet, and even though she punched you, she's actually really nice and fun when you get to know her. Maki mumbled something under her breath and turned away from them. This guy with the scarf is Tojin Yamaki. He only speaks in onigiri ingredients, but you can get the gist of what he means if you hang around him long enough. Inuyamaki said something about salmon, and Midoriya had to assume that was an agreement. This is Panda. Panda the panda gave a big wave with a big smile. Over here in the coat is Kinji Hikari-senpai. Wait, is that it? Is that all you're saying about the panda? Midoriya thought. Hikari-senpai's 3 favorite things in the world are passion, money, and his boyfriend, who's out getting food for the party right now. Don't forget that you're all paying me back by the end of the day. Hikari said. Midoriya looked at Hikari and started thinking that he looked oddly familiar, but the thought left his mind when Hikari pointed at Midoriya and said. That goes for you, too. I didn't even know I'd be at a party. Just ignore him, I'll take care of it. The tired-looking boy said. And I'm Yuta Akatsu. This is definitely an invasion of privacy, but we all know the gist about why you're here and even a little bit of your personal life. Did Gojo-san do that? Midoriya asked. I mean, if you have to ask. He wished he didn't have to. Anyway, just like you, I was living a normal life before a curse upended all of it and dragged me into this life, and I had to go along with it because people would get hurt if I didn't. Akatsu let out a small laugh before saying. I also wanted to become a hero before I got mixed up in all of this. Help out people who needed it, do some good for the world, stuff like that. I don't know if I would have been good at it, or if I even could have done it at all, but it was still a dream I would have liked to follow. I guess this is a long-winded way of me saying that I sort of understand what you're going through, so I know that as bad as it is, it can be better than you think, so please don't lose faith in everything just yet. Midoriya had the same thought that appeared in his head earlier, and now he was certain of it. He was certain that it was a thought worth having, and because of that, he let a stream of tears shoot out of his eyes. Whoa. What's wrong? Akatsu asked. Shit, did Maki mess you up that bad? Well, she is a gorilla in human skin, after all. Hikari said. Hey, fuck you. Maki said, the statement coupled with her flipping him off. No, it's not that, it's just that Akatsu-senpai's the only person I've met through all of this who's been both nice and normal. Midoriya cried as he wiped his tears on his sleeve. Hey, that's not nice. Maki can't help being a weirdo. Panda said. Inuyamaki said something about salmon, and Maki looked like she was doing the calculations to figure out how to perfectly drop-kick the both of them. I'm sorry, I'm not trying to be rude, but I don't want to lie, either. It's been a really rough week for me, but knowing that I can have someone like Akatsu-senpai helping me means a lot. When Midoriya wiped away more tears, he saw Akatsu fidgeting about and doing his best to not look Midoriya in the eye. I'm moving overseas, tomorrow. Akatsu's statement did a lot to explain all of that. What? Yeah. I'm going to America, then Africa, and then I'll just kind of be bouncing around the world for a while. Akatsu said. This party is meant to serve as a farewell to Akatsu-senpai. I suppose it was a miscalculation on my part to not properly relay that to you. Yanagi said. And with that, Midoriya's good mood fell apart once more. It's okay. I'm only going to be gone a year at most, and you'll probably still be alive by then. No, wait. It broke apart even more than before. Maki-san. Maki-san's gonna be here, so you'll be okay. I know she might seem kind of mean, but once you get to know her, she's one of the nicest and most helpful people you'll ever meet. You couldn't be in better hands. Okay, we get it, just shut up. Maki shouted. Maki's face looked red, and Panda was smirking up until Maki glared at him. God, where is the food? I want people to be eating so people can stop talking, already. As if on a cue, a girl with a gold stripe in her black hair, a face covered in piercings, and a puffy crop top that exposed a good deal of her midsection, stepped into the lounge with a pile of pizza and fried chicken in her arms, slamming them down on a coffee table before saying, "Pizza time. You're late. I'm not paying for those," Hikari said with a smile. "Sorry I'm late, but there was this squirrel eating a peanut outside, and it looked super cute with its cheeks puffed out like a balloon, and what was I supposed to do, not take 1,000 pictures of it?" the pierced girl asked. The more Midoriya looked at her, the more she started to seem rather familiar. "I hope it wasn't cuter than me." "You know it wasn't, Kin-chan. Close second, though." The pierced girl skipped over to Hikari and kissed him on the lips. Everyone was groaning and telling them to get a room, and through all of that, Midoriya's eyes widened as a sudden realization hit him. "Hey, what's that kid staring at?" the pierced girl asked. "Well, Yuta did say the Kinji had a boyfriend, Kurara, so." Maki trailed off from that, and Kurara looked ready to pop a blood vessel. "What? You got a problem, kid?" Kurara asked. "What year do you think this is? I'm allowed to be who I am on the inside, even if I don't look it on the outside, you know. I swear to God, I am not afraid to cancel you. Twitter, Instagram, Mispis, Space Battles, Ask Jeeves, you name it, where do you? Sparkling Majesty." Kurara's ranting came to a halt as everyone looked at Midoriya as if he had sprouted a second head. "Sparkling what?" Akatsu asked. "That's why I thought you looked familiar. You're Kurara Hashi, aka the dashingly debonair hero, Sparkling Majesty. You're just an intern for the Kurama Tengu hero, Sajabu, but you've managed to arrest over 30 villains, and you were a major player in the evil Christmas incident last year, too. That's why you were staring at Kurara?" Maki asked. "Of course. He's amazing." Maki let out an A, but that wasn't enough to mess with Midoriya's newfound excitement over meeting a real hero in the flesh. "Aw, I've got a fan. Yay." Not even the awkwardness he felt when Hashi hugged him and pressed his bare stomach against his head was enough to take him out of his good mood. "To think I even thought about hating an adorable little thing like you. Say, Kin-chan, which sounds better to you? Iken or Midoriki?" "Never mind, I thought of Iken first, so Iken, it is." "And Kin-chan, I mean Hikari-senpai," Midoriya said as he squirmed out of Hashi's grip. "You're another intern for Sajabu. The balance hero, Anubisman. You also did a lot on Evil Christmas, and you're the one who beat Moonfish and stopped him from cannibalizing that school bus full of orphans last summer. I must have watched a recording of that over 100 times. Yeah, I am pretty great, aren't I? Thanks for reminding us of what we already know." Hikari laughed as he slapped Midoriya on the back so hard that he almost fell over. "Great. Now we have 3 people who actually give a crap about hero stuff," Maki said while rolling her eyes. "And there should be a hell of a lot more, but we're a good enough start," Hikari said. "Okay, let's get this party started, already. Inuyamaki, get the stuff out. Midoriya, don't go too hard on the KFC, it's mostly here as a Gojo deterrent." Before Midoriya could ask what that meant, he watched a giant scroll appear behind Inuyamaki that spat out paper plates and bottles of imported soda out onto the table. "Inuyamaki-senpai, is that your curse technique? I guess they don't all look as creepy as I thought they did," Midoriya said. "Fish flakes," Inuyamaki said. He shook his head, so Midoriya assumed that it wasn't his curse technique. Wait, but if it's not that, then. It's his quirk. Akatsu interjected. His quirk. He has a quirk. Sorcerers can have quirks. I had just assumed that it was one or the other, either you have a quirk or you have curse energy, but this changes everything I was thinking about curse energy. From what I understand, curse energy is mostly internal, so if it's a part of you, that means it can probably be integrated with a person's quirk. Imbuing a quirk with curse energy is probably easy enough, but could you use curse energy to strengthen a quirk in a manner similar to the trigger drug? What about fusing your quirk with your curse technique? Is that possible? Oh, wait. Gojo-san said he's a hero, so how many heroes are actually sorcerers just passing their curse techniques off as quirks? Your loquaciousness is quite astounding, Midoriya-kun. Yanagi said. The second Midoriya was snapped back to reality, his face went red, and he felt like dying again. Sorry. I get really excited about quirks. Hikari laughed at that, for whatever reason. So Panda-senpai, are you a human with a panda quirk, or are you a panda with a quirk that gives you human intelligence? I'd like to think I'm more than just the sum of my parts, thank you very much. Panda said with a huff. That was important, yes, but Midoriya still wanted to know what those parts were and the implications of them. Okay, enough of all of this. Let's get this party started. Hashi said. Hashi pointed his finger at the ceiling like a gun and fired a pink orb of light from it. The orb stuck itself to the ceiling and started flashing lights around the lounge like they were at a disco. In spite of the atmosphere he had tried to set up, no one was dancing around except for Panda and Hashi, but Midoriya could feel a definite lightness in the atmosphere, and he even had a bit of a laugh when he saw Yanagi stack 3 slices of pizza on top of each other and shove them into her mouth. Later that day, Hashi and Hikari gave Midoriya autographed photos of them as Sparkling Majesty and Anubisman. It was odd that Hikari's looked like a mugshot, but he was happy to have an autographed picture of a hero, either way. At the very least, it was good to know that there were some decent people he could be around. Overall, Yuji's first day of school was off to a rather boring start. Aizawa's suddenly throwing them into a do-or-die exam added a bit of exciting, albeit unwanted, tension, but it was hard to get invested in it when it was just exercises that he barely even needed his quirk for. Soon enough, the test came to an end, and Yuji took first place, much to his lack of surprise and a lot of people's amazement. Wow, first place. Congratulations, Itadori-kun, said the rosy-cheeked girl, whose name Yuji now knew to be Ichako Uraraka. Yes, you've done a splendid job, Itadori-kun. Congratulations. Iida said. Dude, that was awesome. Before Yuji could offer a sheepish thanks. The guy with the spiky red hair said that while pumping his fist in the air next to Yuji. Yuji remembered his name was Ejiro Kirishima. You blew through that whole test like it was nothing, and you barely even needed your quirk. Talk about manly. Yeah, how'd you get so tough, anyway? All of a sudden, there was a pink-skinned, pink-haired girl with black sclera and antennae in front of him, Mina Shido, if he was remembering right. Me? I don't really do much. Yuji said. I did work out, like, all day yesterday, though. I also do a lot of push-ups and sit-ups, and I drink plenty of juice, and I also do a lot of crunches and pull-ups, and drink plenty of milk. Seriously? That can't be it. How could that be all you do when you're casually breaking Olympic records left and right? Uraraka asked. Beats me. I don't get it now any more than I did in junior high, but I'm not complaining. As Yuji thought about how little he had pondered his natural strength over the years, he watched Kirishima gain an excited look on his face, and Ishido gain a surprised look on hers. Holy crap, I just got it. Kirishima said. I thought your name sounded familiar, and all that stuff about junior high and drinking juice. You're the Tiger of Manda Junior High. The toughest guy in the whole damn region who always has crazy excuses for why he's so strong. Yuji didn't see how they were crazy when they were the truth. Egids? You're that Yuji Itadori? Iida asked. Well, you're a changed person now, but such a notorious delinquent being our classmate is still quite the shock. Hey, I wasn't a delinquent. Yuji said. You sure about that? I heard you once beat up 30 guys in 10 minutes and threw one of them so hard he went right through a tree. Ishido said. Uraraka and Iida looked aghast at all of that, and off in the short distance, Yuji could see the diagonally scarred boy, Kitsuki Bakugu, scowling at every word. They started it, so enough with the slander. Hey, I didn't mean it like that. I think it's cool when a guy knows how to be tough and isn't afraid to show it. Kirishima nodded his head with great fervor. Look, it's not like I'm super happy about all of that. Yuji said. Sometimes I'd get into a fight with someone when someone was getting bullied, and then they'd call in their boys or their girls for help getting back at me, and it's not like I could just take that lying down, especially when they had quirks and I didn't. Yuji stared at everyone for a second before quickly adding. By comparison, I mean. because they all had flashy stuff and all I had was Tandava. Yeah, that's it. Well, Itadori-kun, even if you didn't like it, I'm happy that you were just trying to help people. I guess you were acting like a hero even before you got into UA. Uraraka said. Yeah, I guess. Speaking of UA and being in it, though. Yuji turned his head to look at Minoru Mineta, an incredibly short boy with purple balls for hair. He was currently curled up in a ball bawling his eyes out because he ended up in last place, meaning that he would end up getting expelled. By the way, I was lying about expelling someone. Aizawa's sudden declaration summoned a silence that washed over everyone. It was a logical ruse to draw out your maximum potential. Surprised, aren't you? The silence was broken with nearly everyone screaming in shock in various ways. Mineta, specifically, was crying tears of joy as he celebrated his continuing education. Oh, so he was lying. That makes sense. It's not like most of this stuff could even work with most of our quirks, anyway. Yuji was one of the people who didn't react that way. Yes, exactly. Good to know that I wasn't the only one who could see that. Another person who didn't react that way was Momoyaoi Rozu, a smart-looking girl in a ponytail whose smile told Yuji that she probably thought he was smarter than he actually was. Yuji noted that if her butt was a little bigger, then she'd be his ideal woman, at least on a surface level, but he did his best not to make it obvious. Mineta giving him a thumbs up in the distance made him question his success, but Yaoi Rozu wasn't saying anything, so he wanted to believe he was in the clear. But the first day being a half day, school was more or less done after the test finished, and Aizawa went over the school curriculum with everyone. Yuji made plans to hang out in town with Uraraka and Iida, and somehow Kirishima had wormed his way into all of that. The more the merrier, Yuji supposed, but before all of that, he had to go to the bathroom. Yuji whistled a jaunty tune as he absent-mindedly stepped into the first-floor bathroom, but his mouth went silent upon the sight of 3 kids, slowly lowering a boy's face into a urinal. I'm not sure whether or not I want this to just be a school tradition, Yuji said. The 3 kids pulled the boy away from the urinal and lifted his head up. Dark hair that looked like it was made of tentacles was covering his left eye, and while Yuji didn't get a good look at it, he could have sworn he saw a burn mark on his forehead. Oh, please, don't mind us, said a tall boy with thin eyebrows and a smarmy look on his face. We're just having a little fun with our pal Yoshino here. Nothing for you to get worked up over. He doesn't look like he's having fun, though. That's just because he's a little shy, but he's having a blast. Aren't you, Yoshino? Yoshino's lip quivered before he nodded his head. See? We're all friends here, just ribbing and screwing with each other a little. Guy stuff, you know. I know about that, but this looks more like bullying. The smarmy boy stopped smiling as he threw Yoshino against a wall and stepped in front of Yuji. You know, this really doesn't concern you, Mr. Wannabe Hero. Yuji looked at their uniforms and saw that they were all in general studies. I bet it's super easy and barely an inconvenience for someone on your path to just assume that there's a problem for you to solve, but that's just not how life works, you know. Yeah, I know. Don't put words in my. Sometimes things just aren't worth your time, and they sure as hell aren't worth forcing your pretty little out-of-touch ideals on, so it's probably in your best interest to butt out and mind your own business. Yeah, maybe. I do have to use the bathroom, though. Can't you take a hint? You need to leave before things get way too complicated. What appeared to be bits of string started poking out of the smarmy boy's shoulder. Let me just wash my hands first. They're covered in shit, see? Yuji held his hands up in front of the smarmy boy. Huh? They look clean too. The smarmy boy was cut off by Yuji punching him in the face and sending him crashing into the floor. Well, now they're covered in shit. And blood, as it turned out. Now he actually did have to wash his hands. Ito. The other 2 bullies shouted. Ito picked himself up and glared at Yuji as blood dripped down a broken nose. Well, isn't that just like a hero? You can't take no for an answer, and when that's all you're given, you just try and brute force your way into being right. Ito said. What? That's not what's going on, you're just an asshole. Yuji said. This isn't over, Mr. Wannabe Hero. Ito, completely ignoring what Yuji was saying, stomped past Yuji with the other bullies in tow. I mean, you're leaving, so it feels like. The bathroom door quickly opened and just as quickly shut. Okay, then. Why did you do that? Yuji spun his head around to look at Yoshino, whose face was a mixture of sadness and anger. This wasn't your problem. You had no right butting in. That's what people keep saying, but I couldn't just leave you alone while they were picking on you. Yuji said. Yeah, and you did a great job of painting an even bigger target on my back. Yoshino said. Before Yuji could ask what he meant, Yoshino said. Ito and the rest of them are gonna want to get back at you, but they know they're too pathetic to take you on, so who do you think they're going to use as a punching bag in your stead? Huh? Who? Yuji had not thought of that, and he didn't know what to think of it. Look, Yoshino, I don't know what sort of history you have with those guys, but you don't need to take this. We can go talk to a teacher together and… Yuji reached out to put a hand on Yoshino's shoulder, but he batted it away without hesitation. I don't need your help. I might hate Ito, but he's right about all you hero types forcing your crappy ideals onto people who don't ask for them. Don't go acting like you can help anyone just because of the class you're in and just leave me alone. Yoshino knocked Yuji aside with his shoulder as he marched out of the bathroom. Left alone, Yuji went through everything that just happened again in his head. He didn't want to believe that he was being intrusive, he didn't want to believe that he was out of line. Someone was in trouble, and he did what he could to help him. That was the kind of person All Might and his grandfather wanted him to be, but when he put it into action, the world was acting like he was in the wrong. No, it's not that simple, Yuji thought. I don't think those guys are right, but maybe they weren't completely wrong. I guess the fact that I'm feeling so confused about it means that there's definitely a lot to think about. Or maybe it's just because I'm kinda stupid. Yuji didn't know which it was, but whatever was going on, he'd figure out the right answer in his own time. For now, though, he had some friends to meet up with. Right after he, at long last, used the bathroom. On Midoriya's second day at Jujutsu High, he got up early with the other students. Fushiguro being the only absentee. To see Akatsu off on his travels. Akatsu got into Principal Yaga's car after talking with Maki for a bit, and as curious as they were about that, no one dared ask her about it, so they focused on saying goodbye to Akatsu. Midoriya was still a little upset about losing the only other person who seemed remotely normal, but everyone else appeared tolerable enough for him to not lose his mind being around them. The second that Principal Yaga's car was out of sight, Gojo hoisted him over his shoulder and ran off into a random building, eventually dropping him in a dark basement with a couch and a TV in the back. Please put me down, Gojo-san. Midoriya said. Gojo placed him down on his feet and dusted off dirt that wasn't there. Tell me, Izuku, you want to live to eat all of Sukuna's fingers, right? Gojo asked. Naturally, Midoriya nodded his head. Well, that's not going to work if we just leave things as they are. Since you're Sukuna's vessel, you'll be able to feel out the location of his other fingers, which means that you have to go on missions with Megumi, Ryuko, and student number 4 once she gets here. The problem with that, though, is that you're a total chicken wuss who would probably die just from a curse sneezing on you. Thanks for the vote of confidence. You're not wrong, but still, Midoriya thought. That's why until the school year officially starts in April, which is when we absolutely can't keep you out of the field anymore, I'm gonna work your butt off to make you into at least a passable sorcerer. Gojo paused with a goofy look on his face, then he said. This is where you applaud me. But that's what you were already supposed to do, wasn't it? Midoriya asked. Take a look at those cans of pop over there. Gojo ignored his question and turned his attention to 2 cans of soda on a nearby table. Midoriya watched them, and he saw one can receive a dent as it went flying, and another become twisted up like a pretzel. This, Izuku, is the difference between curse energy and curse technique. Do you mean that curse energy can be used as a weapon by itself, but by refining it into a specific curse technique, you can get better results? Got it in one. And saved me a lot of time on going over analogies, too. So this training is going to help me get an understanding of curse energy, right? Right. And once that happens, I'll be able to use my own curse technique, right? Wrong. The little bit of excitement Midoriya was feeling vanished into thin air. You could do things like control Shikigami and make barriers, but a curse technique is ingrained into a sorcerer at birth, so you usually can't get one later in life. Oh. Yeah, that makes sense. Midoriya lowered his head in shame. Shame that he let himself think he would get anything truly unique out of this experience. Hey, hold on there, I said usually. Midoriya perked his head up. With Sukuna inside of you, your body's going to evolve into that of a sorcerer, and I have no doubt that a curse technique of your own will come with that. Oh really? Would I lie to you? No, Midoriya thought. Gojo was an annoying man-child, but he wasn't a liar. Well, first things first is getting you to understand curse energy, so we're starting there. What do you think needs to go into curse energy? If I'm remembering right, you said that curse energy stems from negative emotions, but I don't think you need to be constantly negative to use curse energy, you're living proof of that. Gojo gave him dual finger guns. No, being overly negative will probably just make you burn out, so what you need to do is use a small amount of negativity as a catalyst for drawing out large amounts of curse energy. So the key to using curse energy is having good control of your emotions, maybe. Exactamundo. Gojo said that in English, for whatever reason. I am so glad that you're getting all of this on your own and making my job all that easier. Midoriya rolled his eyes, and Gojo said. As for what we'll do to make that work, there are a lot of different things we can do, but we're gonna do a personal favorite of mine. Movie appreciation. Midoriya cocked his head. I'm gonna be watching movies. What, stuff like All Might? The movie, The Flame Hero Rises, Hawks, Home Alone, A Clock and the Legend of the Six Perfections, Beasts of Prey, and the spectacular retribution of one Rumi Isagayama, or maybe. Wow, I know, like, at least 5 subreddits you'd be laughed off of with that list. Gojo's interjection made Midoriya shut up out of embarrassment. We can add some of those to the list if you want, but the two of you are gonna be watching a lot of different stuff, including some other crap. The bigger the variety, the more emotions you get to experience, and the more situations you're prepared for. The two of us. Who else is watching movies? This guy. The guy in question was a stuffed bear Gojo picked up from under the couch and handed Midoriya. It had boxing gloves around its paws, and it appeared to be both alive and sleeping. What's this thing? Midoriya asked. The cursed corpse. Gojo said. Midoriya made it visibly clear that he didn't want to touch it anymore. Don't worry, they're not made from actual corpses. Not that one, anyway. Moving on, that's one of Yaga's creations named Tsukamoto. It's the same kind of thing he was gonna have beat you up yesterday. I had a feeling that doll was alive. So, how is this supposed to? Before he could finish talking, Tsukamoto woke up and punched him in the face. He felt like crying, but he tried his hardest to keep it in. Tsukamoto will stay asleep so long as he senses a constant flow of curse energy, but if there's no power, then he'll attack you like he did now. Gojo said as Tsukamoto danced around the ground like a real boxer. A sorcerer needs to be able to use curse energy with whatever emotion they're feeling, and watching tons of different movies will help with that because they'll make you go through tons of different feelings. As such, your homework right now is to watch one full movie without letting Tsukamoto punch you. What? How am I supposed to do that when I don't even? Wait. Midoriya picked Tsukamoto back up and it wrestled around in his arms for a second before falling asleep again. Figured it out, eh? You might not be a proper sorcerer right now, but even you can naturally emit a tiny amount of curse energy. Don't get comfortable with that though, because it's programmed to gradually increase the amount of curse energy it needs to stay asleep. You gotta stay focused and keep increasing your output, okay? How am I supposed to do that? I don't even know what it feels like to use curse energy. You're gonna have to figure that out on your own, Izuku. Everyone processes curse energy differently, so me telling you what I feel won't help you any. You just gotta get into a groove with some Scorsese or W.S. Anderson until you start feeling something that makes you think, oh, that's curse energy. That sounds a lot easier said than. Midoriya was cut off by a plush fist to the jaw. Midoriya spent the next 6 hours on Gojo's training, which was really just 6 hours of getting punched in the face by a stuffed animal. Try as he might, he couldn't get a handle on whatever it was he was supposed to be feeling, and he could never make it more than a minute without Tsukamoto punching him. The only remotely good thing about it all was that Gojo didn't make start the movies over whenever he got punched, but the constant acts of physical violence made it hard to enjoy them either way. You're not very good at this. Gojo said as the latest movie climaxed in tandem with Midoriya getting punched in the face again. I'm only as good as the teachings I've been given. Midoriya said, rubbing yet another bruise on his cheek. So you should be great now, yet here we are. Midoriya was punched once again before he could offer a retort. They watched the rest of the movie in silence, save for all the times Tsukamoto would punch Midoriya, and Midoriya let out a groan as he got up to grab a new DVD. Midoriya had just finished a cheesy rom-com, so as much as he didn't like the idea, switching over to a horror movie seemed the most appropriate. As he reached for a copy of Number 6 Kills, he heard the door swing open and hit the wall with a thud. Midoriya turned around just in time to watch a sweepants-clad Maki grab a handful of his hair and start dragging him across the floor. Ow, 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 hey. Maki-senpai, what are you? Shut up. Maki said, and Midoriya did just that. Oh, is it 4 already? My, how the time flies. Gojo said. Make sure to bring him back in one piece. Or if not, just make the pile as neat as possible. Come on. Ow. Ow. Seriously, what's going? I didn't say you could talk. Maki said. Midoriya shut up once more, and he stayed quiet as Maki kept dragging him, as he was fairly certain Maki would kill him if he spoke again. A few minutes later, Maki had dragged him to a track field and tossed him down on the grass, leaving him feeling as confused as he could get. Take off your shirt. He stood corrected. Www what? Midoriya felt as if his face was on fire. Maki-senpai, I don't. That's not something I came here for, and maybe I was misreading things, but I thought you and Okatsu-senpai. I'm gonna forgive you for talking so long as you stop it with all the stupid crap and do what I said. Right. Now. Midoriya, not wishing to push his luck any further, stood up and took off his shirt. Maki looked like she was going to vomit before she said. My god, I knew I had my work cut out for me, but I didn't think it was this bad. How can you look at that pile of twigs you call a body every morning and resist the urge to pound your skull in out of shame? Or are you too wimpy to even do that? Is there a point to this, maybe? The point? Man, I wish I had my naginata for that part. Is that I'm gonna take this sack of crap you call yourself and do what I can to mold it into something worth a damn. Really? I mean, sure, I probably have been neglecting my exercise too much, but I'm here to be a sorcerer, so shouldn't I focus on learning how to use curse energy? Without a word, Maki threw out a kick that was mere millimeters away from hitting him, but he did feel the sole of her boot graze his cheek. Tell me, Izuku, do you think you could have dodged that if I wanted to hit you? Midoriya shook his head as Maki put her leg down. Do you think that curses, which can be stronger than humans just from doing nothing, would be any easier to dodge? Midoriya shook his head. Good, so you're not a complete idiot. Unless you're like Gojo, you can't just rely on your powers to save your ass, so if you wanna live, you gotta know how to use your body. Are we clear? Are we clear? Yes, senpai. Midoriya said with a salute. No, none of that. If you want to make me happy, then give me 20 laps. D20? Shouldn't I be starting off small so? Maki's glare told him that he had lost his right to speak again, and he got started on his arduous journey to complete 20 laps. 3.5 laps in, Midoriya took a break to step to the side and vomit. Never before in his life had he regretted being a bookworm as much as he did then. If he had spent even a little bit of time on physical fitness over the years, then he wouldn't be dying from exhaustion, yet here he was, doing just that. It made him wonder what his plan for becoming a hero even was with how utterly lacking his body was in basically every field that mattered. I've seen you vomit a lot. Are you sick, or are you just that out of shape? Midoriya turned around to see Fushiguro standing behind him with a couple of bottles of water. Oh my god, thank you. Midoriya said as he pulled the bottles out of Fushiguro's hands and downed one in a single sitting. I thought for sure I was gonna die, and now I'm only slightly sure about that. Good to know you're self-confident, at least. Fushiguro said. If nothing else, I have that. Midoriya drank half of the second bottle and said. Hey, Fushiguro-kun, about what happened when we first met. Save it. Fushiguro interjected. That wasn't you fighting, that was Sukuna. I'm not going to hold a grudge against you for something a curse did. You haven't been thinking about that all this time, have you? That said enough, as it was. It's just that we haven't seen each other since then, and you weren't at Akatsu-senpai's party or outside to see him off. I wasn't avoiding you, I'm just not good in large groups. That's hard enough as it is for me, and it would make this kind of talk even harder. Fushiguro scratched his cheek for a second and said. The point is, we're working together, so we shouldn't think there's bad blood between us. Midoriya wanted to cry at the revelation of having another normal person to go to school with, but he was fairly certain his sweat and vomit had robbed him of the water his body needed for that, so all he did was offer an agreement and a thanks. The momentary good mood that had settled between the two of them was interrupted by a naginata flying through the air and lodging itself into a tree between the two of them. I found my weapon, and you need to find your way back to the field. Naturally, it was Maki who sauntered into view and retrieved the weapon that nearly killed Midoriya. Hey, I get that he needs a lot of help, but you can at least try to go easy on him, can't you? Fushiguro asked. Maki glared at him, and Fushiguro turned away with a look that made it clear he should have known better. That's what I thought. Maki said. It's not like he has a quirk to help pick up the slack, you know. Of course, even if he did, I'd still be pushing him like this, so. Wait, what? Midoriya interjected. Why you know that I'm quirkless? How do you? Oh, right. Gojo-san. He probably told you all when he was telling you all about me. Midoriya knew that they all would have had to learn he was quirkless at some point, but he wished that he had gotten the chance to make it happen on his own terms. Did you know that I don't have any curse energy? Maki's sudden and strange question took Midoriya out of his head. I'm not a normal human or anything like that. I was born to a family of sorcerers, one of the big three of Japan, but I had the tremendous fortune of being born with a heavenly restriction. It gave me superhuman strength, but in exchange for that, I don't have 1 yoctogram of curse energy inside of me. I couldn't see curses if it weren't for these glasses, and I couldn't hurt them if I didn't have curse tools imbued with curse energy. I know you don't know anything about Jujutsu society, but people like me are not looked at in a good light. At all. Being a woman was already going to make things hard, but thanks to this, everyone in my families looked at me like I was garbage from the minute I was born. I'm stuck at the lowest rank possible for a sorcerer, because God forbid the girl without curse energy be allowed to make something of herself, and I can't begin to tell you how many times one of my cousins tried to kill me, like it was the most normal thing in the world, while everyone else, including my shitty excuse for an old man, just sat back and watched. Midoriya wasn't prepared for that. He wasn't prepared for Maki's life story, he wasn't prepared for the similarities with his own life, and he wasn't prepared for how bad a version of events would be. "Hey, senpai," Fushiguro said. "I know I wasn't. If it were up to me, I appreciate the sentiment, Megumi, but we're talking about Izuku right now," Maki said. "Izuku, you've gone through a lot of crap for being quirkless, right? Especially since you wanted to be a hero." "Why yeah, but none of it was as bad as what you went through," Midoriya said. "Oh, I know that, but you still know what it's like to be an outcast for something you have no control over." "That was true. Do you want to know why I'm trying to be a sorcerer in spite of all of that? So that one day, I can go back home and tell my family to go fuck themselves with the biggest ass smile on my face. Isn't that why you wanted to be a hero? To tell everyone who said you couldn't to fuck off?" And no. It suddenly felt as if the air became unnaturally quiet. "Not even a little." Midoriya shook his head. "Oh. Well, even if your dreams do suck, the point is that I know what you're going through. That's why Yuta told me to help you, and that's why I'm not letting up for a second until I'm convinced you can fight for what you believe in." Maki's forcefulness was striking a chord with Midoriya, somehow. A lot of what she was saying was still riddled with insults and vulgarity, but underneath it all, he could still get a sense of genuine support from her, support he had never gotten from anyone his own age, not even Bakugo. "Akatsu-senpai was right, you are a nice person, deep down," Midoriya said. "Of course, I am." Then, with a wide smile, Maki said. "Now give me the rest of those laps before I shove your legs down your throat and make you finish by rolling around in a ball." Midoriya didn't know how she would do that, but he wasn't interested in giving her the chance to try. "Megumi, since you're here, keep him company." "What? Why do I have to?" Maki punched a tree with enough strength to crack the bark, and with that, both Midoriya and Fushiguro made their way to the track to do an inordinate amount of running. By the end of it all, the two of them were a pile of floppy limbs without a single trace of energy between them, something Maki found hilarious. The next day of Midoriya's training wasn't going any better than his first. He was back to watching movies with Gojo, which really meant he was back to getting punched in the face over and over again by Tsukamoto. The constant physical abuse from a living stuffed animal was making it incredibly hard for him to enjoy All Might 4. The journey for love, but there was nothing he could do about it. Nothing except use curse energy, of course, but if that were something he could do, then he wouldn't be in his current situation. No matter how hard he tried, though, he just couldn't get anything to happen. The steps were supposed to be using a small amount of negativity to get it started and using any other emotion to keep it going, but all he ever got for his troubles were plush fists to the face. Then it hit him like a ton of bricks. He was doing it wrong. When he thought about using any other emotion to keep the flow of curse energy going, he was thinking of it as something completely separate from the negativity, but what if that wasn't how it worked? What if the other emotion he was feeling needed to be something that could be born from the negativity used to get things going? Sorcerers weren't overtly negative people, yet they needed negativity to fight, so there had to be a link between their negativity and the emotions they actively showed. Midoriya thought about Akatsu, who was not only a sorcerer for similar reasons, but also had dreams of being a hero. Midoriya thought about Maki, who had lived a much harder life than him, but was still another person who was ostracized for being born a certain way. They both had things to be negative about, but they didn't act negatively. They had goals and ideals Midoriya couldn't help but admire, and they were born from the hardships they went through before coming to Jujutsu High. "I'm like that too, aren't I?" Midoriya thought. "I've got the king of curses inside of me, so..." No, even before that, I've had a lot to deal with. Kakin and everyone bullying me for being quirkless, no one believing that I could be a hero. I've put up with so much for 10 years that it's amazing I didn't just give up on it all. Why didn't I, though? Amid his thoughts, Midoriya turned his attention back to the movie. It had just gotten to the scene where All Might defeated Petroleum Man and was making an impassioned speech about the importance of alternative energy sources. Absolutely nothing about the scene was written well, as was the case with the rest of the movie, but Midoriya could still feel John Hamm doing everything he could to make himself come off as inspiring and a harbinger of hope. That was what Midoriya had wanted. He wanted to be someone who could give people hope. He wanted to be someone who could make people feel safe with his presence alone. He was able to put up with everything life threw at him because he refused to give up on that dream, because he refused to believe that the choice was taken out of his hands from birth. That was all there was to it. That was what sprung up from his spark of negativity. The thought washed over Midoriya like early sunlight in the city. There was nothing but traffic around him, but it wasn't as bad as it would be in the afternoon, so there was a sense of tranquility to all of the hustle and bustle. It was easy for him to keep calm, and it was easy for him to watch everyone go about their business and wish them each a pleasant day. Oh, that's curse energy. The word slipped out of Midoriya's mouth as if it were the most natural thing in the world. By the time he even noticed he was saying something, he saw Tsukamoto retracting a fist mere millimeters away from his face and going back to sleep. "Hey, you did it," Gojo said. Yeah, I did, didn't I? All this is doing is helping me not die as fast as I could, but it's still the first time I was able to succeed at, well, anything. Turns out that feels really good." Midoriya laughed and said. "I never knew how good it could feel to succeed at something." In the middle of his reverie, Tsukamoto punched him in the face once more. Yuta Okatsu never had a lot of opportunities to travel in his life. His family didn't make a habit of leaving town very often, and by the time he was in junior high, he had more or less cut off ties with them, so that made traveling even harder. As such, never did he imagine that his first time traveling would be an all-expenses-paid trip around the world with California as the first stop. "I'm pretty sure they gave me the wrong meal on that flight." Nor did Yuta imagine that he would be going on his travels with someone who, just 2 months ago, was working to destroy Japan as one of the main conspirators of Evil Christmas. As a sorcerer, he was supposed to call it the Night Parade of 100 Demons, but Evil Christmas sounded more interesting. More to the point, it was weird that Miguel was his traveling partner, and it was even weirder for him to be so casual as they dragged their luggage out of the airport. "You ordered the chicken, didn't you?" "They definitely gave you chicken," Yuta said. "Yeah, but I asked for no salt, and I'm pretty sure that I tasted salt," Miguel said. "Then you should have said something when we were on the plane. What good does it do to complain about it now?" "None, but I didn't think about it until now, so now's when I'm bringing it up." "If it took you this long to think about it." "The mere fact that I thought about it at all means that there's merit to it," Miguel said. "Yuta, take a note for future reference. The next time we're taking a plane, we're not using this airline, got it?" "Yeah, I'm not doing that," Yuta said. Miguel looked at him as if he were an idiot, which was especially impressive on account of him wearing sunglasses. Yuta did his best to ignore that. They were supposed to be meeting up with someone who would guide them through America, and Yuta wanted to be in as good a mood as possible for that. As such, he kept his thoughts focused less on Miguel and more on leaving the airport, a surprisingly daunting task when there was suddenly a massive crowd of people around the exit. Eventually, Yuta and Miguel made their way through the crowd and all of their random cries of excitement. That allowed them to see what had drawn everyone in, and the sight made Yuta's jaw drop. Ever since he started going to Jujutsu High, he hadn't been keeping up with heroes as much as he had liked, but he still knew the biggest names around the world. Right in front of them, with her hair that was trying to surpass All Might's in pointiness, and her imposing Amazonian form wrapped in a costume that looked like an American flag vomited all over her, was a hero almost as impossible to ignore as All Might. Right in front of them was Star and Stripe, the #1 hero in America. "Oh, there's my new brothers." Yuta was sure he was having a jet lag-induced stroke, because that was the only explanation for how and why Star and Stripe would be looking and waving at him and Miguel. "Nope, she's talking to us, and yeah, it is pretty insane," Miguel whispered in his ear. "What?" The crowd was turning at them in awe as Star and Stripe ran in their direction. "What?" The crowd erupted with cheer as Star and Stripe threw her arms around him and Miguel. "What?" "Yes, let me introduce you all to my new sidekicks, Ryuga and Miguel. They're a bit wet behind the ears, but I'll have them kicking ass the American way in no time." The crowd alternated between chanting their names and chanting USA. Over and over again. "What? English, man. Do you speak it?" Star and Stripe whispered. "Yuta, you mean Gojo, right?" Miguel asked. "He said it was gonna be a hero, but he sure as hell didn't say it'd be a big shot like you. Also, he seriously couldn't come up with a good name for me. And y'all wonder why I wanted to kill him." Yuta was too busy being intimidated by Star and Stripe to react to anything Miguel was saying. "Don't know about that, but I'm definitely gonna bop him one next time I see him." Yuta didn't know how that would be possible, but before he could ask her about it, he saw her muttering things with a finger against her ear. Looking closely, Yuta saw that there was a tiny transceiver device in her ear. "Bad news, everyone. It looks like a gang of rowdy villains just stole a truck that was carrying the prize money some rambunctious teens won in a dance competition to save their local community center." "That's a thing that happens?" Miguel asked. "Worry not though, because your favorite hero is on the case. You can watch me save the day like always, and better yet, you get to see my new brothers in action." The crowd roared with excitement as Yuta felt his stomach doing backflips. "Hey, are we really the right people for this?" Yuta asked. "Of course. You're you, aren't you?" It was simple, yet oddly profound, and it did a lot to calm his nerves, surprisingly. "Gotta get a move on, so." Star and Stripe put a hand on Yuta's shoulder and said. "Yuta Okatsu will be able to track Kathleen Bates' movements." There was a red, white, and blue aura around Star and Stripe that wasn't around anyone else. "Try to keep up with me now, if you're gonna be my brothers, then I wanna see how you smash." Star and Stripe threw out a salute and jumped over 30 feet away from them. As the crowd cheered her off, Yuta thought about how he had been told that sorcerers needed to be a little crazy to do their jobs. In a minute and 26 seconds, Yuta had been reminded that heroes could be plenty crazy in their own right. He would have had to go mad no matter what career path he managed to secure, so maybe he was more prepared than he thought. You know, I don't know why, but I think this might be kinda fun. Miguel said. Yeah. Me, too. Yuta said. Yuta quickly pulled his sword out of his luggage and activated his quirk, his bones bursting out of his flesh and morphing into a skeletal armor around his body. With a single command, he and Miguel were off after Star and Stripe, the crowd cheering for their good fortune and Yuta filled with thoughts of success with his future endeavors. Yuta and Miguel forgot to bring their bags with them, and they were subsequently stolen. Name: Tojin Yamaki. Quirk: Scroll. Ability: Inuyamaki can summon large scrolls from thin air. The scrolls can be used as weapons to hurt or entangle people, and they can also be used to store objects, even non-physical matter. Living beings cannot be stored inside scrolls. Name: Kurara Hashi. Quirk: Twinkling Star. Ability: Hashi has full light manipulation, including being able to turn himself into light. Anything that would affect regular light can also affect Hashi when he turns himself into light. Name: Yuta Akatsu. Quirk: Crossbones. Ability: Yuta can manipulate his bones into weapons. When a bone is destroyed, it returns to its place in his body, but is damaged to a certain degree, depending on how much it was damaged when used as a weapon. Yuta can control bones other than his own, but he has to physically touch someone or something to do it, and the bones created from anyone other than himself are less powerful than his own bones. The crisp spring air brushed gently against the nape of Midoriya's neck. With everything that had happened, the end of winter had felt as if it had lasted 5 times longer than it actually did. It made the first true burst of warm weather feel all the better as a result. The quick punch to the face tore all of that asunder. 2 months ago, getting punched in the face the way he just was would have knocked him flat on the ground, or at least made him want to cry. Now, however, he could not only stand his ground and keep his face dry, but he could send his own punch right back at his opponent. Maki dodged it with ease, but he was still happy that he could even give her chase and keep throwing punches at her. All of the work Gojo had put into teaching him about curse energy was paying off. Once he finally understood what it was that he was feeling, he could repeat that whenever need be to bring out his curse energy, watching All Might. Rise of Justice to completion brought him to tears, not just because it was a great movie, but because it was the first time he could watch it in weeks without getting punched in the face. Midoriya's continuing grasp of curse energy was further enhanced by the training Maki was giving him. 2 months of extreme exercise and physical training didn't do a lot in the grand scheme of things, but it made him more physically fit than he could have possibly imagined for himself. Maki almost made Bakugo seem tame by comparison, but he was beyond grateful to have her spend so much time teaching him the ropes, even as she laid him flat on his ass for the 5th time in a row. "Do you want to call it a day here?" Maki asked, not appearing to have broken a single sweat. "Yes, please," Midoriya said with a groan. Maki helped him off the ground as the onlookers, minus Fushiguro, cheered him on for his efforts. "You've managed to last a whole 3 minutes against Maki before giving up, Midoriya. That's the best you've done yet," Panda said. "Yutamaki," Inuyamaki said. Midoriya chose to assume that he was also congratulating him. "I thought I'd be able to get at least 1 hit in, though," Midoriya said. "Learn how to not fight like a dumbass, then," Maki said. Midoriya kept looking at her for elaboration, but it didn't take long for him to realize that it would never come. Maki-senpai is referring to the improper way in which you use curse energy. It was Unagi who ended up explaining things to him. Whenever you decide on which part of your body you will strike with, you make your curse energy flare up too much in that area, thus telegraphing your next attack. It's not an issue for weak curses, but for opponents who have a high degree of intelligence, especially humans, it can be highly detrimental. Am I really doing that? I just thought I was bad at fighting, in general, Midoriya said. Well, there's that, too, Fushiguro said. With or without curse energy, if you're going to telegraph your attack so blatantly, you need to at least make sure they're too good for your opponent to do anything about them. Right, sorry. The last time I ever threw a punch was when I was 4, and getting completely pulverized for it wasn't much of a motivator to learn how to do it better. Never thought having to fight for my survival against curses would be what pushed me to do it, but I guess it had to be something, right? That's the spirit, kid, Hikari said with a thumbs up. You can do it, Iken, Hashi said with his hands in the air. I believe in you, so you can do it, 177%. His enthusiasm almost made him believe that without reservations. Positive reinforcement was truly a wonderful thing. As it turned out, it made him wish he had put in more of an effort to get some before his life had been upended so thoroughly. Hey, kids, it's me, Gojo. Gojo suddenly appearing in the middle of the field next to Midoriya to say that nearly made him fall over. Everyone else started shouting at Gojo, and Hikari even threw a soda can at him that somehow flew right back into Hikari's hand. I see you're all having fun here, and what's the best thing to add to that? Homework. Gojo said. Izuku, Megumi, Ryuko, school's officially in session, so we've got a double whammy of things to do today. Pick up your last classmate in Harajuku and go on your first official assignment of the year. And there it was. Midoriya's first official call to duty, the first mission as a sorcerer he would undergo in the limited amount of time he had left on Earth. At least he sort of knew how to fight, now. Midoriya's seniors saw him off with varying degrees of encouragement, the biggest being Hashi's enthusiastic wishes of good luck and the smallest being Maki, saying that she'd kill him if he died. Midoriya took it all in stride as Gojo drove him, Fushiguro, and Yanagi into town to meet up with their last classmate. Before they left, Gojo gave Midoriya something he had been waiting weeks to receive. His Jujutsu High uniform. It was the same black Gakurin that Fushiguro and Inumaki wore, but unlike theirs, his uniform had a dark green hoodie with rabbit ears sewn into the collar. Gojo said that students were allowed to customize their uniforms if they put in a request, but the fact that he took it upon himself to do it without telling Midoriya sort of defeated the purpose. The hood looked nice, it bore a resemblance to All Might, and the uniform left enough breathing room for what he had on underneath, so it was a rare moment of him not complaining about something Gojo did. The four of them made their way into Harajuku and headed for the train station, only ever stopping 6 times so Yanagi could get food from various stalls. Midoriya didn't know what the last student would be like, but there was a disproportionate amount of crazy people among the sorcerers he knew, so he was sincerely hoping she skewed more towards normalcy. Midoriya didn't know where, exactly, they were supposed to be meeting her, and as he looked around for someone who could be the new student, he saw a young girl continually being harassed by an older man about being a model. At worst, it was a trap for something perverted and illegal, and at best, it was a scam to rob her of all of her money, but either way, Midoriya couldn't let it continue. Hey, you. Just as Midoriya was getting ready to discard his uniform and spring into action, a girl grabbed the man and pulled him away from his intended victim. Midoriya felt he could rest easy, knowing that someone was already handling things. What about me? Or maybe this is getting worse. Midoriya thought. Come again? The man asked. What are you, deaf? If you need a model, then I'm way better than this chick, you know. The girl said. I'm taller than her, I'm skinnier than her, my face is prettier, so why not pick me, huh? Excuse me? The first girl asked. Quiet, this isn't about you. This is about this bozo not understanding what he's missing out on. The first girl stomped off in a huff, and the older man ran away in the opposite direction. Hey. Come on, man, I'm the total package. Your loss, asshole. The girl shook her fist in the air and started kicking a garbage can while muttering obscenities under her breath. Our final compatriot certainly has a unique disposition. Yanagi said while working her way through 3 chocolate crepes. Midoriya turned his head around so fast that it nearly flew off of his neck. What? She's our classmate. Are you sure there isn't some kind of mix-up? Midoriya asked. Yeah, I'm with you on this one. Fushiguro said. Maybe if we just leave quietly before she sees us. Hey. Over here. Gojo's yelling put an end to Fushiguro's plan and quickly brought the aggressive girl over to them. With the girl in front of him, Midoriya could see that she was wearing the female variant of their uniform, but unlike Maki's, the jacket only went down to her midriff, with that space being covered up by the belt of her skirt. She had a short crop of auburn hair with a rose blooming out of the left side of her head, most likely a mutation from her quirk, and her eyes were glaring at them from the moment she joined them. Way to keep a girl waiting. She said. Well, anyway, I'm Nobara Kujisaki, and now that I'm here, this group is finally worth a damn. Midoriya didn't like any of that. I'm Izuku Midoriya. And nice to meet you, Kujisaki-san. Midoriya said. Ryuko Yanagi. A pleasure to make your acquaintance. Yanagi said between bites of her 5th crepe. Megumi Fushiguro. Fushiguro said with notable disinterest. Kujisaki said nothing as her eyes darted back and forth between Midoriya and Fushiguro, and after a few seconds, she let out an exasperated sigh. Just my luck, getting saddled with a couple of losers like you two. Kujisaki said. Midoriya didn't like any of that, either. Kujisaki then turned her attention to Yanagi, and her eyes began to light up a little. Wait, are you a girl? That is what my gynecologist has told me, yes. Yanagi said. Yanagi wiped off large splashes of chocolate against her sleeve before Kujisaki picked her up in a hug. Oh my god, yes. I'm so glad I'm not gonna have to spend my golden years stuck in a sausage fest. Thank you so much for being a girl, Yanagi, even if you're a slobby girl who needs to know when you should and shouldn't be eating. You're welcome, now please release me. Kujisaki did just that, and Midoriya couldn't help but think that it was good that Kujisaki was getting along with someone, even if it wasn't himself. Okay, now that we've all gotten to know Nobara a little, I think it's time to give her a little sightseeing tour of our wonderful city. Gojo said. Really? Then I want to go to Disneyland. Kujisaki said with stars in her eyes. My shithead brother went last year with all his friends and his awesome wife, and won't stop bragging about it, so I wanna stick it to him and have a good time doing it. Yeah, that's something you're gonna have to do on your own time. For now, let's head on down to Roppongi. Kujisaki jumped with glee, but Midoriya was certain that there wasn't just cause for her to be so happy about it. Once Gojo brought them to Roppongi, Midoriya became completely certain that there wasn't just cause for Kujisaki to be so happy. Rather than the fancy tourist attractions of Roppongi Hills, they were brought to a decrepit, abandoned building that was oozing with negative energy. Kujisaki was cursing Gojo out for lying to them, which was promptly ignored by everyone. There's a huge cemetery down the block. That, combined with this creepy building, has drawn out some curses. Gojo said. Right. I guess that makes sense, what with it being a cemetery and all. Midoriya said. It's not explicitly because it's a cemetery so much as it's because people associate cemeteries with fear. Fushiguro said. Kujisaki stopped her ranting and walked up to Midoriya. Hey, how do you not know that? That's basic stuff, right there, even a country bumpkin like me knows about that. Kujisaki said. Yanagi stepped over to Kujisaki and whispered into her ear. By the time Yanagi pulled away, Kujisaki's face had gone pale, and she had jumped 5 meters away from them. No way. He's the one who ate Sukuna's finger. Gross. Super nasty. Give a girl a heads up about something like that. Sorry. Midoriya said with his head lowered a bit. Pretty sure I told you about that, Nobara. Sure, I like to keep things from people to screw around with them, but there's nothing all that funny about this. Gojo said. Well, no one here was looking like they fit the bill, and even when I try to think about it, I would have put more money on it being him. Kujisaki said, pointing at Fushiguro. Just look at those cold, dead eyes that have never seen an ounce of luster. If you're telling me that he's not possessed by something, then he has to be a serial killer, right? I could start. Fushiguro said. Now, save the killing for the curses, kiddies. Gojo said. Nobara, Izuku, you two go exterminate the curses inside the building. Megumi, Ryuko, and I will stay out here to keep an eye on things. Kujisaki stuck out her tongue. Mr. Gojo, would it not be better for all of us to enter? Yanagi asked. The curses here aren't so strong that all 4 of you need to work together to beat them. More importantly, I already know what you and Megumi are capable of, so now it's their turn to show me what they've got. Hope you're up for it. Hey, don't ask me, ask. Kujisaki suddenly stopped talking, and if Midoriya had to guess, it was for the same reason everyone was staring at him. They had all caught sight of his hero costume. The day that everything started, Gojo had told Midoriya that sorcerers disguised themselves as heroes in order to go about their business unimpeded, so that meant that they had to wear costumes, too. If it was okay for sorcerers to wear costumes, then that meant it was okay for him to wear a costume, too, so he wore the costume his mom had made him under his uniform and had now stripped down to it. Looking around made him feel out of place, but he was still confident in his decision. Well, that's certainly a choice. A stupid choice, but it's still a choice. Fushiguro said. I must admit that the initial charm of the outfit is highly accentuated when it is actually being worn. Yanagi said. Thanks, Yanagi-san. Midoriya said as pulled his mask out of his pocket and put it over his head. Things appeared to be going better than he thought they would. That thought was swiftly abandoned when Gojo and Kujisaki started laughing like hyenas. Oh man, oh man, oh man, oh man, oh man, you look stupid. Gojo said through his laughter. I can't believe you looked in the mirror this morning, saw what you look like, and thought that you didn't look like a dumbass. What are you trying to do, kill curses through secondhand cringe? Kujisaki asked as she wiped a tear from her eye. God, and to think I even thought about being afraid of you. Hard to be scared of a guy who decided to make himself some bunny pajamas to fight in, you know. Actually, my mom made this for me. The instant Midoriya said that, Gojo and Kujisaki both stopped laughing. Yes, well, I think it's nice that you have a mother who would provide you with so much support. Gojo said with a fake cough. A mother who would go to such lengths to support their child deserves all the admiration and respect in the world, Kujisaki said. Midoriya was willing to take whatever he was given. Anyway, Izuku, take this. Gojo tossed Midoriya a small parcel of some sort and he unwrapped it to find a dagger with fur wrapped around the hilt. That's the curse tool Slaughter Demon, doesn't do much besides slice up curses, but it should be good enough for this kind of mission. You've gotten a good handling of curse energy these past couple of months, but you're still pretty green, so this should help you out. Oh, wow. Midoriya said. He waved the slaughter demon around in the air, it felt light in his hand, and he could almost feel the energy contained inside of it. Also, this goes without saying, but don't bring out Sukuna. The danger he poses to others is one thing, but he could wipe out the curses in this building in a nanosecond, so that'd make it hard to test you. Don't worry, sir. It's not like I plan on letting him out again. That was the one promise he wanted to keep, above all else. The Bara Kujisaki used to believe that she was blessed in life, what with her good looks, powerful quirk, and humble personality, but for the first time in her life, she was starting to think that she was legitimately cursed. Barely off of her train ride into Tokyo and she was already being put to work by her school, and worst of all, she was being forced to work with a total wimp of a man who just so happened to be possessed by Ryam and Sukuna. It was a double whammy of absolute awfulness. She could only imagine how much her brother would laugh at her when he heard about her misfortune, and she wouldn't even be able to punch him in the face right away, because the last thing she wanted was to cause a scene in front of her sister-in-law. Man, this whole thing is a pain in the ass to end all pains in the ass. Kujisaki said as she and Midoriya traversed the abandoned building. Isn't this our job, though? Midoriya asked. Kujisaki barely turned to look at him, partly because she still felt a little unsafe around him, partly because she knew she couldn't look at him in his costume for too long without cracking up. I want to be out of here as soon as now, so let's split up. I'll start up top and work my way down, so you start at the bottom and work your way up. Wait, don't you think we should stick together? Kujisaki could practically taste the lack of drive in her partner. This isn't a horror movie or a Scooby-Doo cartoon, you know. Splitting up isn't a death sentence. But curses are strong, aren't they? It'd be dangerous to get cocky and underestimate them. Excuse me? You've been a sorcerer for what, 5 minutes, and you think you get to treat me like an amateur? That's not. Shut up, bunny boy. Don't go around mansplaining the job to me just because you're too scared to fight on your own. Midoriya did the smart thing and said nothing before splitting off from her. That was good. Now that Kujisaki was alone, she could finally get things done and hopefully have enough time to do something fun before nightfall. All by herself, Kujisaki made her way to a room on the top floor of the building. There were a few mannequins in random poses, innocent enough from a cursory glance, but there was an underlying creepiness to them that extended beyond the inherent creepiness of mannequins. Hey, you in the middle. You planning on hiding in there all day, or do I have to come and get you? Kujisaki asked the mannequin standing in the middle of the bunch. Okay, guess we're doing it the hard way. Kujisaki reached into her belt and pulled out a hammer with a heart on it and a pair of nails. She tossed the nails into the air like a baseball and slammed into them hard with her hammer. The second the nails jammed into the mannequin's head, a multitude of eyes popped out, and when Kujisaki snapped her fingers, curse energy flowed out of the nails and shattered the head, and the curse living inside of it, to bits. Just like she thought, Midoriya was worrying over nothing. If the curses in the building were weak enough to go down that easily, then even someone as wimpy as she assumed him to be had nothing to stress over. Kujisaki's continual belittling of Midoriya in her head was interrupted when she heard some rustling in the distance. She stepped past the disintegrating corpse of the curse to find a little lizard boy cowering against a wall. The most likely explanation in her mind was that the boy was playing in the building when one of the curses spooked him and sent him into hiding. Kujisaki tried to be a responsible adult and get him to come over to her now that it was safe, but the boy wouldn't move. She should have expected as much, children always had trouble interacting with beautiful people like her, after all. I guess Bunny Boy's gonna be good for something, after all. Kujisaki said. Just stay here, kid. I'll be back in a sec. Wait, no. Don't leave me here. Kujisaki turned around to berate the lizard boy for not being able to commit to anything, but before she could do that, she saw a large furry curse with stumpy eye stalks phasing through the wall behind him. Before Kujisaki could react, it had already grabbed the lizard boy by the head and pointed a claw at his throat with a disgustingly toothy grin on its face. Taking a hostage? This curse is intelligent, Kujisaki said. Curses back home in the country only know how to run around like animals, but here. Shit. This thing is just a grade 4 curse, grade 3 at best, so I could kill it without even trying. It knows that, and that's why it's pulling this stunt. God damn it. The furry curse's objective was obvious. Kujisaki had to surrender herself if she wanted the lizard boy to live. She couldn't do that, of course. Even if she were half as noble as her brother's friends, there was no guarantee that the curse would let the lizard boy go. Between the two of them, her life objectively counted for more, so it made the most sense to prioritize her own safety, even if it came at the cost of someone else's. In spite of that, Kujisaki still threw her hammer and belt to the ground and raised her hands up high. I'm unarmed. Let the kid go and do what you want with me, Kujisaki said. The furry cur said and did nothing, only chuckling to itself as it maintained its position. Yeah, figured as much. I'm betting a part of this test was to see how this little country mouse reacts to the big scary dangers of the big city. Yeah, I guess curses out here are smarter than the ones back home, but guess what? I'm still way above all of you. As the furry curse kept leering at Kujisaki tilted her foot up at an angle, and from her shoe burst out a long thick needle. It flew into the furry curse with such speed that it couldn't do anything, and with such force that it made it drop the lizard boy, who started crying as the curse's blood spilled onto his scales. This right here. This is why I wanted you to let him go. Kujisaki said, retracting the needle back into her foot to bring the furry curse closer to her. I could have always done that, but the last thing I needed on my plate was traumatizing some poor kid. So, are we gonna keep doing this the hard way, then? The furry curse turned and ran for the wall, the hard way it was, then, just what she was hoping for. As the furry curse headed for the wall, it ran past the nails Kujisaki used to kill the other curse, and that made things so much easier for her. On the surface, the nails were just normal nails, but pieces of her hair had been mixed into the iron, meaning that her nails could be used to activate her quirk from a distance. Rupture. With a single command and a snap of her fingers, the nails exploded and released a stream of needles at the furry curse. All of the needles hit their target, and by the time it got to the wall, it looked like a giant piece of rotten Swiss cheese. It only took another second for it to completely fade away into nothing. That'll teach you to mess me. Kid, are you? The lizard boy ran up to Kujisaki and hugged her, and Kujisaki just patted him on his head. Despite how she had been acting, there was a small part of her that was worried she would have messed up. Maybe she would have been too slow, maybe her attack wouldn't have been strong enough, whatever it was, there was an inkling of doubt in her mind that didn't fade away until she saw everything play out. I guess not having that kind of confidence is why I'm a sorcerer and not a hero, Kujisaki thought. She looked back at the lizard boy, who was now smiling at her, and thought, must be nice that heroes get to do this, though. Midoriya had a lot of problems with Kujisaki. He had known her for less than an hour, but she was loud, she was brash, and worst of all, she was able to see right through him. For the most part, Midoriya was being honest about how things would be better if the two of them worked together, but she wasn't wrong when she accused him of being scared. He had spent a lot of time training with Gojo, Maki, Hikari, and everyone else, but he still had no practical experience fighting curses. He had no idea what he could truly expect, he had no idea if his strategies would be enough, he had no idea if his attacks would be able to do what he wanted them to do. Worst of all, he had no idea if he could keep to his promise of not bringing out Sukuna. Even now, as he made his way through the halls, he could hear Sukuna in the back of his head, taunting him with the promise of killing every curse if he just let him out for a little bit. He knew that was wrong in every sense of the word, but what if it actually came down to that? What if the fight was too much for him and Sukuna was his only option? What if he wouldn't have the strength to resist bringing him out if it meant saving his own life? The thought of it all tightened his grip around Slaughter Demon, to the point that he was sure his hands were turning wide underneath his gloves. Very unfortunately for him, the only thing that brought Midoriya out of his head was a pair of insectoid claws making their way towards his neck from above. Midoriya just barely avoided having his head lopped off and rolled hard into a wall. Here is your receipt. Midoriya picked himself up just in time to watch his assailant climb down from the ceiling. It was a monster that towered above him with a lower body resembling a bug, very fitting with the claws, and an upper body that looked like a human with an ugly, distorted face. Just from looking at it, Midoriya could feel exactly what he felt that day 2 months ago, so he knew without fail that it was a curse. Okay, gotta think, Midoriya thought. Given its size, it's probably not too fast, so I should be able to overwhelm it if I'm quick enough. Oh, but what if I'm not quick enough, though? And it has a lot of mobility with those legs, so it can get me at a lot of different angles. What if it comes at me from above again? Maybe I should find Kujisaki-san and get her to help. But after what just happened between us. Before Midoriya knew it, he was being flung across the hall from a powerful swing by the bug curse. He wasn't paying full attention, but even with that, it had moved far faster than he had expected. That gave him a better idea of what he was working with, but he still didn't have a plan in mind. It all got worse when Midoriya picked himself up and saw something drip onto the floor. Red, small, blotchy. It was blood. The first second he thought about it, he could feel that it was his blood, and the second he thought about it, he could see a diagonal gash tearing through his costume and into his chest. He could have sworn he had brought out his curse energy in time, but either his timing was off, the bug curse was just that much stronger than him, or some combination of the two. Order up. Beef stew. Side of grits. The bug curse charged at Midoriya, and Midoriya lost his nerve and ran. He now knew firsthand that curses could hurt him, and every part of him was pushing him to not try and let it happen again. All thoughts of fighting it had vanished, and it was taking all he had to run and dodge its attacks. Midoriya eventually managed to catch his breath from ducking behind a corner as the bug curse ran the other way. He had a moment's reprieve, but no idea what to do with it. The bug curse was bigger and stronger than him, and he was too rattled to try and properly see who was faster. The second he tried to attack it with Slaughter Demon or his own fists would probably just lead to him getting cut up again, and he didn't want that. It was the first time in his life that he had been hurt like that, and there was nothing that made him want to do it again. And yet, it was so quick to happen again. As Midoriya let panic set in, the bug curse found him and went back to assaulting him, getting 2 hits across his stomach and leg before he could get back to running. The only reason he wasn't screaming from pain was because of the adrenaline pushing him to flee, but he had no way of knowing how long even that would last. In the middle of his run, Midoriya tripped and fell flat on his face, so it evidently didn't last long. Order. Up. The shadow of the bug curse fell over Midoriya as it raised a claw up to strike him down. Midoriya's body froze. He couldn't come up with anything to do, couldn't push himself to launch any sort of counterattack. All he could do was lie there and stare at the bug curse like a deer in the headlights, readying himself for what came next. Midoriya didn't expect what came next to be a large lance-like object flying through the air and stabbing the bug curse through its shoulder. It screeched in pain as the object stuck it against the wall, and that was enough for Midoriya to recollect himself, if only enough to wonder what was happening. Well, isn't this a pretty sight? That question was answered when Kujisaki stepped into view. After all that yarn you were spinning about how I wasn't taking this seriously, here you are pissing your pants over what? A grade 3 curse, at best. Meanwhile, not only did I just finish getting rid of 2 of these things, I even saved a little kid. What? That got Midoriya's attention more than Kujisaki's save. Yeah, brought him outside so Mr. Gojo could take him to the police, and that's when I found out you were still having trouble with this asshole. You're not making the best first impression on me, you know. Sorry. Midoriya said under his breath. Whatever. I'm here now, so I might as well lend you a hand. Midoriya's body twitched. You clearly can't do this on your own, and I got stuff I want to do today, so let's just get this over with, okay? No. Midoriya finally stood up and faced Kujisaki, just so he could say that to her face. What? You're the one who wanted to work together, and you're the one who's losing here. I know. I know. Midoriya said. I'm not an idiot, I know that I'm biting off more than I can chew here, but still. This is my first fight as a sorcerer, so if I give up now, then I'll never be able to fight on my own. More importantly, I can't stand it. No one else here cares about being a hero, yet you're saving kids while I'm getting destroyed by something weak. I can't keep wearing this costume that my mom worked so hard on if I can't even try to match up to that. So, please. Don't step in unless I'm being torn apart, limb from limb. Kujisaki put on the same disgusted look she had when they first met. All of this wishy-washy crap is getting on my nerves. All this sounds like is you finding another to act like you know better than me, and I'm sick of it. That was probably what was running through her mind, and he couldn't blame her for it, but he would keep fighting her for as long as it took. Fine, whatever. I'm gonna hold you to that, though, so don't go crying for help unless you're bleeding out of 3 stumps, at least. It took less time than he thought it would, and a part of him was frazzled because of that. Nevertheless, this was what Midoriya wanted, and he needed to follow through on it, especially when the bug curse had finally freed itself from Kujisaki's attack. Eggs. Over. Easy. Blood poured out of the bug curse's shoulder, but it was still able to charge at Midoriya. Midoriya wasn't any less scared than he was before, but now his resolve was beating out his fear, and that was enough to get him to raise Slaughter Demon up high and parry its attack. Midoriya was able to stand his ground, and when he looked closer, he saw a cut on the bug curse's claw. I heard it. I heard it. Midoriya thought. I can do this. I can fight. Midoriya's curse energy flared around his fist as he charged at the bug curse. It dodged his punch, but he had expected that. Maki and Yanagi had just told him that he telegraphed his attacks too much with how poorly he used curse energy, and that wasn't the kind of thing he could fix in an afternoon, but he could use it to his advantage. He knew that the bug curse would dodge his fist, and in doing so, it wouldn't notice him kick his front legs and trip him over. The second it fell over, Midoriya grabbed its arm and used all of his strength to toss him into a wall, and before it had a chance to recover, he punched it in its stomach. Medium or? Well done. Unsurprisingly, the bug curse didn't go down from that attack, and it readied itself to attack Midoriya once more, but Midoriya's attack was far from over. Divergent smash. The second part of his attack kicked in right then and there as a wave of curse energy flew out of his fist and exploded into the bug curse. Its body rippled like water against Midoriya's power, and the second impact sent it flying through the wall and out of the building. It screeched in agony as it crawled about on the ground. We're not done here. Midoriya put curse energy into his legs to jump in an arch onto the bug curse. He was seated right on top of its ugly face, and he was quick to go at it with Slaughter Demon. Over and over and over again, he drew his knife in and out of the bug curse until it was harder to find places it wasn't bleeding from. The bug curse eventually threw him off hard onto the ground, but when it moved to strike him once more, Midoriya was quick enough to slip through and jam Slaughter Demon into its chest. This is it. This is where it starts. This is where I go beyond my useless elf. Midoriya thought. Plus ultra. Screaming at the top of his lungs and from the depths of his heart, Midoriya drew Slaughter Demon at an angle across the bug curse's body and drew a large splash of blood. Midoriya dropped his weapon and clutched an aching shoulder as the bisected halves of the curse fell to the ground and disintegrated. With his long-awaited victory realized, he was going to just let himself fall over and slip into unconsciousness, but he found his body being lifted off the ground before that could happen. You should try and remain conscious, Midoriya-kun. Losing consciousness is not healthy for you. Naturally, it was Unagi lifting him up with her levitation quirk. He had forgotten that everyone else was outside. Well, that sure was something, makes me wish I caught more than just the end of it. Gojo said. Megumi, mind filling me in? Well, Midoriya did something to blast that curse through the wall, and then the next thing we knew, he just kept stabbing it over and over again. Don't know how they got outside, though. I saw it. Kujisaki said after joining them outside. He did this weird thing where a bunch of curse energy shot out of his arm a few seconds after he punched the curse. That's not your curse technique, is it? Cause that doesn't look right. No, it's not. Also, could you put me down now, Yanagi-san? Midoriya asked. Yanagi put him back on his feet and he continued talking. Apparently my control over my curse energy is so bad that the majority of my curse energy takes a while to come out with each hit. I've already been told that it's not a curse technique, just poor application of curse energy, and Mr. Gojo laughed when I got excited about thinking that it was a curse technique. Still, it's definitely useful in a fight, as I can use it to disorient enemies by essentially hitting them twice with a single attack. Of course, that's assuming that I'm able to keep them connected to my fist long enough for my divergent smash to activate, but I could use Slaughter Demon to keep them in place, or maybe Yanagi-san can use her quirk to help with. Okay, shut up. Kujisaki interjected. Well, I guess I'm the one who needs to shut up, though. You know, cause you managed to put up and whatnot. Yes, congratulations on not dying, Izuku. Gojo said. Seriously, though, good job. I was wondering if a kid like you had the kind of mental fortitude to be a sorcerer, but just looking at you and hearing about what you did, you can be pretty batshit crazy if you put your mind to it. And that's good? Midoriya asked. Fushiguro shrugged his shoulders while Yanagi nodded her head. It means that even if you end up a bloody pulp in the process, you've got what it takes to be a part of this. Good job, bunny boy. Kujisaki said, smacking Midoriya hard in the back. It felt like his back was going to split in two, but that wasn't on Kujisaki as much as it was on him. For the first time that day, he felt like Kujisaki wasn't acting like it was a chore to be around him. If that wasn't a sign that he truly belonged in the world of jujutsu, then he didn't know what was. Even with all of the pain he was feeling, he still found it within his power to feel happy. Satoru Gojo had very few requirements for what he looked for in acquaintances, mostly because of how rare it was for his terrible personality to not push people away, so the people who got close to him tended to have little overlap in their characters. For example, there was the hero he met on a trip to America 9 years ago, Star and Stripe. She had an intoxicating enthusiasm that was rare for even heroes, and just being around her when he was at such a low point in his life helped to bring him out of his funk. There was also his little sort of cousin, Yuta. Yuta had started out as a gloomy boy just wanting to be left alone, and in a little under a year, he had grown into a gloomy boy with lots of friends. There was a subtle, yet vital, difference between the two, and Gojo was happy that he could watch him grow so much when so many people would have rather, and still did, wished for his death. That brought him to the latest person to be stupid enough to not run away from him. Izuku Midoriya. Izuku was similar to Yuta in a lot of ways. Both boys had their lives upended by powerful monsters for reasons beyond their control. Both had become sorcerers to keep themselves alive when they would have rather become heroes. Both were growing more from bonding with the friends they were making at Jujutsu High than they probably ever could have with the people they knew beforehand. Izuku was a lot more squeamish than Yuta, though, as evidenced by how he kept falling out of his chair whenever Shoko tried to touch him. For the last time, kid, I'm not gonna hurt you. If I wanted to hurt you, then I'd just melt your face off, or something. To illustrate her point, Shoko spat at a bowl of butterscotch candies on a counter, and the spit dissolved half of it in a few seconds. Did this dumbass forget to tell you how I work, or something? Is my blindfold on too tight? Because I don't see anyone else in this room. Gojo said. The room in question was the infirmary at Jujutsu High. Following the completion of the mission, everyone except Nobara, who had run off to shop and attend to personal matters, returned to the school, and Gojo brought Izuku to the infirmary so Shoko Ieri, the resident healer and one of his few legitimate friends, could fix him up. It was usually a straightforward process, but Izuku was making it surprisingly difficult. It was fun to watch, though. Why yeah, Mr. Gojo explained how your curse technique works, but it still seems weird to me, and I don't know how comfortable I am with it. Izuku said. Really? Regular people have that one hero, recovery girl, right? She's a healer, too, and she has to kiss people to heal them. Shoko said. Are you saying you'd be more comfortable with that? Or does a woman touching you in any way set you off? Izuku convulsed with every accusation, so it was hard to figure out which one was correct, or, rather, what the order of correctness was. Okay, let's just get it over with. Midoriya said as he hoisted himself back into his chair. Shoko sighed before putting a hand on his chest, ignoring the way he twitched at her touch and enveloping him in a pale light. In an instant, Shoko's reverse curse technique got to work and started healing Izuku. All the bruises and wounds he had suffered were fading away, and Gojo could even see his bones being set back into place. Watching the process was always as neat as it was gross, and the latter always reigned supreme when organs or severed limbs got involved. Wow, I feel completely fine. Izuku said. I've heard that recovery girl's quirk has a side effect of draining the patient's stamina to the point that it's dangerous to use it on severe injuries, but I don't feel tired at all. Is the reverse curse technique even better than recovery girl's quirk? I'd say so. Unless you wanted me to kiss you, of course. Shoko said. Gojo could swear that Izuku's mask was turning yellow around his cheeks. Hey anyway, Ieri-san. Do you think you could teach me how to use reverse cursed energy? I know that it's not something only specific people can use like a curse technique, and since I still don't have one, something like this could be good to learn, I think. Gojo laughed for half a second. He quickly covered it up and made Izuku look the fool for turning to him. That was good. He couldn't spoil the joke right away. Sure, why not? Take some stress off of me, after all. Izuku's eyes lit up through his mask, it was getting too good. So, the first thing you do is go, Haya. Then you go, Hayo. And you follow that up with a little Haihyoi. Following me so far? Midoriya said nothing, and Gojo was trying his hardest to keep his laughter in check. The ridiculousness of it all was one thing, but the fact that Shoko was saying it all with her usual stoicism made it even better. Shoko continued with, there are a lot of little things to remember between those steps, though. There's a part where you go, boom, boom. And you have to offset that with, bada bong. But only until you get as far as giving yourself a little, shazam. And a little, skadoosh. All of it has to come together with a sense of, yoza yoza bo boza, but above all else, when you make it go, bam, you can't forget to make it all go, wham, first, because if you try to wham, but you can't make it bam, then it's no thank you ma'am. And that's how you use reverse curse energy. Any questions? After 10 seconds of Midoriya just sitting there dumbfounded, Gojo finally let out all of the laughter he was holding in. Watching people process the dichotomy of Shoko's serious demeanor and all of the nonsense she used to explain her powers was always a blast. Oh, so you're another idiot, then? Fine, whatever. Even better was how Shoko was completely oblivious to what she was doing, which always made Gojo laugh even more. You're all better now, so you can go. The other kids are trying to throw you a party for today's mission, right? Right, so I'll be going, then. Thank you for healing me and also, the other stuff. Izuku said. Izuku quickly bowed and ran out of the room, nearly tripping over himself in the process. Despite all of the teasing, he couldn't help but like the kid. You really do like dragging the craziest kids into our world, don't you? Was what Shoko said the second they were alone. I'm a pretty crazy guy, myself. Just trying to not feel so lonely. Gojo said. I'm serious here, Gojo. When I was healing Midoriya, I could feel that one of the more damaged areas on his body was his hand. I'm guessing he beat his opponent with that weird move he developed from working with you, but something like that should be the most effective if the person's raw power is also high. I know that Maki and Hikari have been helping him with physical training, but he could have only made so much progress after 2 months, and his hand was the proof. If his punch is weak enough for it to hurt him more than it hurts the curse, then that means that his curse energy is doing most of the work. So, for him to be able to do a ton of damage to a curse, even a weak one, and blow it through a concrete wall with his curse energy alone. That kid must have a metric ton of curse energy at his disposal, right? Gojo didn't do anything but smile. He wanted to laugh, but that time, he made an honest effort to keep it to himself. He did that because he knew that if he laughed, it would be too easy for him to give away that there was a joke, and he wanted her to figure out the punchline on her own. Gojo noticed Izuku's hidden potential the second he got a handle on using curse energy. It was raw and undefined, but it was still a massive thing to behold to the point that he was still only tapping into a fraction of it. The best part was the reason behind it. There was no reason. After what happened with Yuta, Gojo was quick to start investigating Izuku's family tree and uncover and potential hidden legacies, and there was nothing there. Izuku was an honest-to-God nobody, yet he was gifted with an insane amount of curse energy. This was the boy who happened to unlock himself into becoming Sukuna's vessel. Gojo was always going to help him, but now he was basically obligated to do what he could to help him become one of the most powerful sorcerers around, if only because of how much a random nobody getting on Gojo's level would rile up the higher-ups until the end of time. If he could do that, then it would be the punchline to the greatest joke he could ever come up with. Shoko started smiling in a way that made it clear she was in on the joke, too. Good. He always liked having reminders that she was the smart one in his class. Come on. Let's get a drink. Shoko said. Singular. Must be catching you on an off day. Gojo said. Now that you mention it, I could probably go for 2 glasses. Or 12. Gojo couldn't bring himself to laugh at that because he knew she would make him pay for it. Name. Nobara Kujisaki. Quirk. Needle fiber. Ability. Kujisaki can make needles come out of her body of varying sizes and thicknesses. This also includes turning her hair into needles. When needles are launched from her body, Kujisaki can control their trajectory to a certain extent. Name. Shoko Ieri. Quirk. Nitric acid. Ability. Ieri can secrete nitric acid from her body of varying acidities. Ieri's quirk gives her a natural resistance to acidic materials, but said resistance decreases if she continually uses it. That's it guys. Hopefully you enjoyed it. With that, take care.